Hello and welcome to Cross Naruto, your home for amazing stories. Today's story is what if Naruto was the primordial death god before Thanatos, the original Reaper Naruto x Persephone x Hera. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't already. We post new stories regularly. Let's get started. Chapter 1, Shadows of Forgotten Gods. The void between realms wasn't empty, not if you knew how to look. Naruto floated through the cosmic darkness, his form shifting between solid and shadow as naturally as breathing. Golden hair caught non-existent light, and eyes that had witnessed the birth of stars gazed into the endless expanse. Another century, another cosmic temper tantrum, he muttered, sensing the ripples disturbing the fabric of existence. Something had happened, something big enough to send tremors through the barriers separating life from death. Naruto stretched, his black cloak billowing around him despite the absence of wind. He'd spent. How long had it been? Millennia? Eons. Time meant little when you predated its conception. He'd withdrawn from divine politics after establishing the concept of death itself, leaving younger gods like Thanatos to manage the day-to-day operations of mortality. Retirement had been peaceful. Boring as hell, but peaceful. The ripple came again, stronger this time, urgent, insistent. All right. I'm coming, Naruto grumbled to the cosmos. But this better be good. He tore a hole in reality with casual ease, stepping through dimensions like others might walk through doorways. The veil between worlds parted for him, not because he asked, but because it remembered who he was. Death itself made way for its creator. Naruto emerged on a windswept mountain peak overlooking a lush valley. Greece, or what mortals now called Greece. He'd watched this land rise from the sea, seen empires bloom and wither across its soil. A raven landed beside him, its feathers too dark to be natural. Been a while, hasn't it? Naruto said, not bothering to look at the bird as it transformed into a tall figure shrouded in shadows. 3,000 years. Give or take, the messenger replied, voice like stone grinding against stone. The Pantheon has been busy in your absence. They usually are. Drama queens, the lot of them. Naruto stretched again, bones cracking. So what's so important that you track me down, Hermes? The messenger god's eyes widened slightly. You recognize me in this form? Kid, I knew you when you were just a concept swimming in the primordial soup. Naruto waved dismissively. Cut the theatrics. What's happened? Hades has taken Demeter's daughter. Persephone. And? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Gods kidnapped each other all the time. It was practically an Olympic sport. Demeter's grief is killing the world. Crops wither, mortals starve. But that's not why I'm here. Hermes shifted uncomfortably. There's something else. Souls are vanishing before reaching judgment. That got Naruto's attention. Vanishing how? Just, gone. No arrival in the underworld, no judgment, no afterlife. They disappear between their last breath and Karen's boat. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Soul harvesting was bad news. Really bad news. The kind of news that made primordial deities come out of retirement. The council requests your presence on Olympus, Hermes finished. Requests? Naruto laughed. Since when does Zeus request anything? Since the problem involves souls disappearing before death. That's your domain, Lord Nyx, not his. Naruto winced at the formal title. Don't call me that. It's just Naruto now. As you wish. Naruto. Hermes clearly found the name strange on his tongue. Will you come? Naruto sighed dramatically, gazing up at the gathering storm clouds. Fine. But I'm not dressing up, and if Zeus tries that whole thunderbolt intimidation routine, I'm turning his precious throne into a pile of splinters. I'll omit that part from my report. Smart kid. Naruto grinned, clapping Hermes on the shoulder hard enough to make the messenger god stagger. Race you there? Before Hermes could answer, Naruto vanished, leaving nothing but golden sparks drifting in the mountain air. Mount Olympus hadn't changed much, still all gleaming marble, shining gold, and gods with egos bigger than the monuments built in their honor. Naruto strolled through the gilded halls, ignoring the shocked whispers that followed in his wake. Is that, it can't be, the first death? Nyx himself, a young goddess carrying an armful of scrolls, nearly walked into him, then dropped everything with a squeak when she realized who stood before her. Careful there, Naruto said, stooping to help gather the scattered parchments. Important stuff. Prophecies, my lord, she stammered, wide-eyed. For the oracle at Delphi. Prophecies, huh? He handed her the scrolls with a wink. Spoiler alert, half of them won't come true, and the other half will happen in ways no one expects. That's the problem with seeing the future, it's never what you think it is. He left the flustered goddess behind, following the sound of arguing voices to the great council chamber. The massive doors stood closed, but such trivial barriers meant nothing to him. Naruto simply phased through the solid gold as if it were mist. Cannot continue to ignore the signs. A powerful female voice echoed through the chamber. First Persephone, now this. My brother's romantic escapades are hardly our concern, Hera, rumbled a deeper voice, Zeus, no doubt. As for these disappearances, Thanatos assures me, Thanatos is a child playing with powers he barely understands, Hera snapped. Naruto chose that moment to materialize fully in the center of the council, causing several gods to jolt in surprise. Harsh, but not entirely inaccurate, he said cheerfully, enjoying how Zeus nearly fell off his throne. What's up, everybody? Miss me? The silence that followed was absolute. 12 major gods and various minor deities stared at him with expressions ranging from awe to terror to outright hostility. Zeus recovered first, straightening his lightning bolt and attempting to look dignified. Nyx, he acknowledged with a stiff nod. Your arrival is unexpected. Really? Your boy Hermes made it sound like I was invited to this little shindig. Naruto looked around the chamber, noting the empty thrones. No Hades? Or is he too busy with his new bride to attend? Demeter, ashen-faced and hollow-eyed, made a sound like a wounded animal. Show some respect, Apollo hissed. You stand before the Olympian Council. Naruto turned slowly to face the sun god, his casual demeanor slipping just enough to let something ancient and terrifying peek through. The temperature in the room plummeted. I created death when you were still a twinkle in Leto's eye, sunshine. I walked the cosmos when your father was nursing at Rhea's breast. His voice remained conversational, which somehow made it worse. Don't lecture me about respect. Apollo shrank back, golden radiance dimming. Perhaps, a new voice interjected smoothly, we could focus on why Lord Nyx has been summoned. Naruto turned to find Hera watching him with calculating eyes. Unlike the others, she showed neither fear nor hostility, only keen interest. The Queen of Olympus sat tall and regal, her peacock feather crown glittering in the ethereal light. Thank you, Lady Hera, Naruto said with a nod that contained just enough deference to be polite without being submissive. I hear you've got a soul problem. Specifically, souls vanishing before they reach the underworld. Zeus cleared his throat. Yes, well. Thanatos reports increasing incidents of mortal souls disappearing after death. They never arrive for judgment, never cross the Styx. And where is your death god now? Naruto asked, looking around the chamber again. Searching for the missing souls, Athena replied, her gray eyes studying Naruto intently. He's been distressed by these developments. I bet he has. Naruto paced the center of the council chamber, thoughts racing. Soul harvesting required immense power and ancient knowledge. Not many beings could pull it off. When did this start? The gods exchanged glances. Around the time Persephone was taken to the underworld, Hera answered when no one else would. Coincidence? Naruto raised an eyebrow. We think not, Hera replied. Great. Naruto ran a hand through his spiky golden hair. So you've got a missing goddess, missing souls, and a freaked-out death god. And you called me because... Because you are the architect of death itself, Zeus said grudgingly. If anyone knows how souls might be intercepted before reaching the underworld, it would be you. Naruto considered this, then shrugged. Fair enough. But I work alone. Absolutely not, Zeus thundered, lightning crackling around his throne. This affects all realms. The Olympian Council will sit here and bicker while I actually solve the problem, Naruto interrupted. No offense, but you guys aren't exactly known for efficiency. Several gods bristled, but before Zeus could explode, Hera placed a restraining hand on his arm. Perhaps a compromise, she suggested smoothly. Lord Nyx will lead the investigation, but with observers from Olympus. Naruto narrowed his eyes. 1. I'll take 1. 2, Hera countered. 1 from Olympus, 1 from the underworld. Clever. She wanted eyes from both realms. Naruto couldn't help but admire the political maneuvering. Fine, he agreed. But I pick who? Zeus began to object, but Hera squeezed his arm again. Agreed, she said. Who do you choose? Naruto pretended to consider, though he'd already decided. From Olympus, you. He pointed at Hera, whose eyes widened fractionally. And from the underworld, I want Persephone. The chamber erupted into chaos. Absolutely not. Demeter shrieked. My wife is not available for, Zeus began. The girl has no experience, Apollo protested. Naruto waited for the uproar to subside, watching Hera carefully. The Queen of Olympus hadn't joined the protests. Instead, she studied him with new interest, clearly reassessing her initial judgment. Silence. Zeus finally bellowed, and the chamber quieted. Nyx, your choices are unexpected. That's kind of my thing, Naruto replied with a grin. Look, you called me because souls are vanishing. That's a death issue. Persephone is now connected to the underworld, giving her a unique perspective. And Lady Hera. He turned to the queen. You see more than you say. You're not blinded by your own glory like some around here. The implied insult to the other gods hung in the air, but Naruto didn't care. Hera's slight smile told him she understood his reasoning. I accept, she said before Zeus could speak. And I believe Persephone will as well, once we explain the situation. But she cannot leave the underworld. Demeter wailed. The agreement allows Persephone to fulfill her duties as queen of the underworld, Hera cut in smoothly. Surely investigating missing souls falls under those duties. Naruto watched the political maneuvering with amusement. The pantheon had gotten more bureaucratic since his day. Back then, gods just did stuff and dealt with the consequences later. It's settled then, he announced, not waiting for Zeus's approval. I'll head to the underworld to collect Persephone. Lady Hera, care to join me, or shall we meet later? Hera rose gracefully from beside Zeus's throne. I will accompany you now. The sooner we begin, the better. Zeus looked like he wanted to object but knew he'd already lost this round. Report your findings to the council, he ordered, trying to maintain some authority. Sure thing, boss. Naruto gave him a mock salute. Anyone got a preference on how we get to the underworld? I know a few shortcuts. Traditional methods would be best, Hera replied diplomatically. We should observe protocols when entering Hades' realm. Boring, but whatever. Naruto extended his arm to Hera with exaggerated courtesy. Shall we? The Queen of Olympus placed her hand lightly on his offered arm, her touch cool and precise. Lead on, Lord Nyx. Naruto, he corrected as they walked toward the chamber doors. Just Naruto. The assembled gods watched in stunned silence as the primordial death deity and the queen of Olympus departed together. Did that just happen? Apollo whispered to Artemis. I believe we're in trouble, she replied softly. The entrance to the underworld at Taenarum was a dark cave mouth exhaling the scent of sulfur and forgetting. Mortals avoided it instinctively, their souls recognizing the boundary between life and death even if their conscious minds did not. Charming place, Hera commented as they approached the cave. She'd been quiet during their journey, observing Naruto with shrewd eyes. One of the newer entrances, Naruto replied. Back in my day, there were thinner places between realms. You could slip between life and death as easily as walking through mist. Is that why you chose me? Hera asked suddenly. Because you think I see more than I say? Naruto glanced at her. The Queen of Olympus had dropped her regal mask slightly, revealing genuine curiosity. Partly, he admitted. But mostly because you're the only one up there with the balls to stand up to Zeus when necessary. Hera's startled laugh echoed against the rocks. A crude assessment, but not inaccurate. Plus, Naruto added, you've got your own reasons for investigating this. Care to share? Her smile faded. Let's just say I've noticed patterns others haven't. Things moving in the shadows. Cryptic. I like it. Naruto stopped at the cave entrance and drew a symbol in the air, a spiral pattern that glowed golden before fading. That should ease our passage. Normally I'd just rip a hole between realms, but you wanted to respect protocols. Hades will appreciate the courtesy. Hades and I have history. Naruto's expression turned unreadable. He was one of the few who understood what I created when I brought death into existence. Most gods just saw it as an end. Hades saw it as transformation. Hera studied him with new interest. You're not what I expected, Naruto. Never am. He grinned and gestured toward the darkness. Ladies first. Or would that be ungentlemanly when heading into the land of the dead? I believe we can walk together, Hera replied with dignified amusement. They entered the cave side by side, the darkness closing around them like a living thing. For mortals, this journey would be terrifying, the gradual stripping away of light, warmth, and hope. For Naruto, it felt like coming home. The path descended sharply, the rough stone giving way to smooth obsidian steps that gleamed with inner fire. The air grew heavy with the scent of asphodel flowers and pomegranate. So, Naruto said conversationally as they descended, what's your take on this Persephone situation? Genuine romance or political power play? Hera raised an elegant eyebrow. You're asking me about romance? The queen who's endured Zeus's countless affairs. That's exactly why I'm asking you. You've seen every variation of divine relationships. You can spot the difference between lust, politics, and genuine connection. She considered this. Hades has always been different from his brothers. More solitary, more thoughtful. I believe he truly desires Persephone, though his methods leave much to be desired. And Persephone? She's what, a nature goddess. Daughter of Demeter, Hera confirmed. Young, but not naive. There's a strength in her that many underestimate. Good, Naruto nodded. We'll need strength where we're going. The path widened into a broad landing, and before them stretched the dark waters of the Acheron. A single boat waited at the shore, a hunched figure standing at its prow. Sharon, Naruto called out cheerfully. Looking good. Did you do something with your hood? Very flattering. The ancient ferryman raised his skeletal head, empty eye socket somehow conveying shock. First death, the ferryman rasped, his voice like wine through desiccated reeds. You honor us with your presence. Yeah, save the formalities. We need a ride to the palace. Naruto hopped into the boat with casual disregard for its ominous appearance, then offered Hera his hand. Watch your step. The whole, almost tipping into eternal damnation, thing is part of the experience. Hera took his hand with more dignity than the situation warranted and settled onto the bench beside him. Sharon remained frozen, his bony hands clutching his pole. Something wrong? Naruto prompted. You have no payment, the ferryman whispered. Naruto sighed dramatically and reached into his cloak, pulling out a coin that gleamed with impossible darkness. Will this cover both of us? It's vintage, from before currency was invented. Sharon took the coin with trembling fingers. This would pay for 1,000 crossings, my lord. Keep the change. Maybe get those oars reupholstered or something. The ferryman tucked the coin away and pushed off from the shore, guiding the boat into the misty currents of the Acheron. As they glided across the dark waters, shadowy forms became visible beneath the surface, lost souls who had failed to receive proper burial rites. They looked different, Naruto murmured, leaning over to study the ghostly faces. Thinner somehow. You notice it too? Hera asked quietly. I thought perhaps it was my imagination. No, something's definitely off. The souls lack substance. Naruto trailed his fingers through the water, causing the spirits to scatter like frightened fish. They're being drained. By what? That's the million drachma question. Naruto leaned back, his expression thoughtful. Soul energy is powerful stuff. You could do almost anything with it, break barriers between realms, resurrect the dead, even challenge the fates themselves. Hera's face paled slightly. You think someone is harvesting souls for power? It fits the facts. Question is, who has both the knowledge and ability to intercept souls between death and judgment? Naruto's eyes met hers. The list is very, very short. Before Hera could respond, the boat bumped against the far shore. Beyond stretched the fields of asphodel, where ordinary souls wandered in a dreamy haze, neither rewarded nor punished. In the distance rose the massive black palace of Hades, its spires reaching toward the cavern ceiling like accusing fingers. Home sweet home, Naruto muttered as he stepped onto the shore. At least for some of us. A figure waited for them at the edge of the fields, tall, gaunt, with wings the color of tarnished silver. His face might have been handsome once, but now bore the hollow-eyed exhaustion of someone working eternal overtime. Thanatos, Naruto greeted the younger death god with a casual wave. Long time no see. Love what you've done with the place. Thanatos did not return the greeting. His grip tightened on his scythe, knuckles white against the black wood. Why are you here, ancient one? Heard you've been losing souls. Thought I'd lend a hand. Naruto's tone remained light, but his eyes hardened slightly. Problem? I have the situation under control. Clearly, Naruto gestured around them. That's why Olympus called me out of retirement. Thanatos's wings bristled. I don't need your help. I am death now. You're one aspect of death, Naruto corrected gently. An important one, sure, but don't get it twisted. I created the concept you embody. The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Hera stepped forward smoothly, her regal presence diffusing the confrontation. Thanatos, we've come at the request of the Olympian Council to assist, not interfere, she said. We seek an audience with Lord Hades and Lady Persephone. Thanatos's eyes flicked to Hera, then back to Naruto. The Lord and Lady are not receiving visitors. Recent events have complicated matters. Yeah, kidnapping tends to do that, Naruto quipped. Look, we can do this the easy way or the fun way. Easy way, you announce us properly, we all play nice. Fun way, I walk straight through these fancy walls, find them myself and explain why their doorman was being difficult. Thanatos's scowl deepened, but after a moment's consideration, he lowered his scythe. Follow me. But I make no promises about their willingness to see you. That's the spirit. Naruto clapped him on the shoulder, causing Thanatos to stumble slightly. See, I knew we'd get along eventually. The younger death god muttered something that sounded suspiciously like an ancient curse as he led them toward the palace. Hera fell into step beside Naruto, her expression contemplative. "You enjoy provoking him," she observed quietly. "Kid needs to loosen up. Being death doesn't mean you have to be all doom and gloom." Naruto watched the souls drifting through the asphodel fields. "I tried to teach him that, back when he first took the job. And he was too busy being important to listen." Naruto shrugged. "Younger gods, you know how they are. Think they invented everything." Hera's lips quirked. "Indeed." They approached the palace gates, massive constructions of obsidian and bone, carved with scenes of judgment and transformation. The gates swung open silently at Thanatos' approach, revealing a courtyard where black flowers bloomed in impossible patterns. Standing in the center of the courtyard was a figure that made Naruto pause mid-step. She was tall and slender, with hair the color of rich earth falling in waves to her waist. Her skin glowed with subtle vitality that seemed at odds with the underworld around her. She wore a gown of deep purple that shifted like shadows as she moved, examining the strange flowers with careful fingers. "Lady Persephone," Thanatos announced stiffly. "Queen Hera and Nyx, request audience." The young goddess looked up, her eyes widening as she took in the visitors. Her gaze lingered on Naruto with undisguised curiosity. "The first death," she said, her voice softer than Naruto expected. "I've heard stories." "All lies," Naruto replied with a grin. "Especially the true ones." A smile touched her lips, transforming her solemn beauty into something warmer. "I'm honored. Though I must ask, why come now, after all this time?" "Souls are vanishing," Hera answered before Naruto could make another joke. "The Olympian Council has requested Lord Nyx's assistance." "Naruto," he corrected automatically. "Just Naruto is fine." Persephone's eyes sharpened with interest. "Missing souls. Is that why Hades has been so troubled? Your husband hasn't shared his concerns with you?" Hera asked. Something flickered across Persephone's face, frustration, perhaps, or wounded pride. "My husband believes he must shelter me from the difficulties of ruling the underworld. He forgets I am a goddess in my own right." "Rookie mistake," Naruto said sympathetically. "No offense, but gods from his generation tend to underestimate anyone younger than the Titanomachy." Persephone studied him with new interest. "You're nothing like the legends describe." "Disappointed?" "Intrigued," she corrected. "The stories paint you as a shadowy force of inevitable doom. Yet you stand before me making jokes." "Death doesn't have to be grim," Naruto said with a shrug. "It's just, change. Transition." The mortals figured that out faster than the gods did. Thanatos made a sound of impatience. "If you've finished philosophizing, Lord Hades awaits in the throne room." "Lead on, feathers," Naruto gestured grandly. Thanatos bristled but turned toward the inner palace. As they followed, Persephone fell into step beside Naruto. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "Did you create death itself?" "Not exactly," Naruto replied, equally soft. "Death always existed as potential. I just gave it form. Purpose. Rules. Why?" The simple question caught him off guard. Most didn't ask why, they were too busy being terrified of death to wonder about its purpose. "Because eternity without end is its own kind of hell," he answered honestly. "Because nothing can truly live without the possibility of death. Because change is necessary for growth." He glanced at her. "Pick one." "They're all true." Persephone nodded slowly, as if his answer confirmed something she'd suspected. "I've felt it, the wrongness in the flow of souls. They passed through my garden on their way to judgment, and lately, the flow has thinned. You can sense that?" Naruto looked at her with new respect. "I am life and death together now," she said, touching one of the black flowers as they passed. It bloomed more fully at her touch, its petals shimmering with vitality. Neither fully of the upper world nor fully of the underworld. I exist at the boundary. Interesting, Naruto murmured, filing this information away. Very interesting. They entered the palace proper, passing through corridors of polished black stone inlaid with precious metals and gems. The wealth of the earth was displayed casually, carelessly, gold veins running through obsidian walls, diamond dust scattered across onyx floors. The throne room doors stood open, revealing a vast chamber dominated by two massive thrones, one of black iron, the other of silver and pearl. Upon the iron throne sat Hades himself, lord of the underworld, his dark crown gleaming in the ghostly light. Brother, Hera acknowledged with a formal nod. We come on behalf of the council. Hades rose slowly, his ancient eyes fixed not on his sister-in-law but on Naruto. Recognition, wariness, and something like respect crossed his austere features. Nix, he said, his voice deep as a tomb. It has been, some time. Few millennia, give or take. Naruto grinned. Place looks great. Love what you've done with the stalactites. You were never one for proper protocol, Hades observed, but there was a hint of amusement in his tone. Why now, after so long? You've got a soul problem, Naruto replied, growing serious. And apparently it's bad enough that Olympus pulled me back into service. Hades's expression darkened. Souls vanish before reaching my realm. Thanatos cannot locate them. The judges stand idle. How many? Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. Hades gestured to a shadowy corner where scrolls and tablets were piled high. The records are incomplete. That's way more than I expected, Naruto admitted, frowning. This isn't some minor deity skimming souls for power. This is systematic harvesting on a massive scale. Persephone moved to stand beside her husband's throne. Could it be a breach between realms? Something drawing souls elsewhere? Possible, Naruto conceded. But unlikely. The boundaries between life and death are my design. They don't just leak. Unless someone who understands those boundaries is deliberately tampering with them, Hera suggested quietly. The implication hung heavy in the chamber. Naruto felt the weight of three divine gazes fixed upon him. I've been retired, not plotting cosmic theft, he said dryly. Besides, I don't need to steal souls. If I wanted more power, there are easier ways. Then who? Hades demanded. Who else possesses such knowledge? Naruto ran a hand through his hair, thinking. Not many. The original Titans, maybe. Certain primordials. He hesitated, then added reluctantly, Erebus. The name sent a chill through the chamber, shadows lengthening as if in response. The darkness before all things, Hera murmured. Your counterpart. Not exactly a buddy of mine, Naruto admitted. We had creative differences about how death should work. Elaborate, Hades commanded. Naruto sighed, dropping his casual demeanor for a moment. When I created death, I made it a transition, a change of state, not an ending. Souls would continue, whether in afterlife realms like this or through rebirth. Erebus wanted death to be final, complete obliteration, souls unmade and their energy returned to the primordial chaos. He sought to undo your work, Persephone said softly. He tried. We fought. I won. Naruto shrugged, as if describing nothing more significant than a tavern brawl. I bound him to the outermost darkness and went on to establish the rules of death that still govern the cosmos. Until now, Hades observed grimly. Yeah, Naruto frowned. If Erebus has found a way to harvest souls before they reach judgment, he could be converting their energy back to primal chaos. Building power. For what purpose? Hera asked. Nothing good, Naruto replied. Best case, he's trying to break his bindings. Worst case. He trailed off, then forced a smile. Well, let's not borrow trouble. Too late for that, Hades said dryly. Naruto turned to Persephone, who had been listening intently. This is where you come in, your flowery majesty. She raised an eyebrow at the nickname but didn't comment. How so? You exist at the boundary between life and death, he explained. You can perceive things neither the living nor the dead can see. I need you to help me track the missing souls. She will do no such thing, Hades interjected sharply. This is clearly dangerous, and Persephone is, standing right here and perfectly capable of speaking for herself, Persephone cut in, her voice gentle but firm. My lord husband, if souls are being diverted before reaching your realm, does that not concern me as well? Am I not queen of the underworld? Hades looked taken aback by her assertion. Naruto bit back a smile, clearly the lord of the dead was still adjusting to having a strong-willed wife. The danger, Hades began again. Will be minimal, since she'll have me for protection, Naruto interrupted. Plus Lady Hera, who I'm pretty sure can handle herself in a divine throwdown. Hera inclined her head in acknowledgement of the compliment. We need to find where souls are being intercepted, Naruto continued. That means tracing the path from death to judgment and finding the weak point. Persephone's unique position makes her ideal for this. Hades still looked reluctant, but Persephone placed a gentle hand on his arm. My lord, allow me to fulfill my duties as your queen. Let me help protect our realm. The lord of the dead covered her hand with his own, his stern features softening slightly. Very well. But you will take guards. No guards, Naruto interjected. We need to move quickly and quietly. Guards attract attention. Then I shall accompany you myself, Hades declared. Naruto shook his head. Can't. You're anchored to the underworld, it's part of your divine nature. Leaving for too long would weaken your power and the realm itself. He's right, Hera confirmed. Zeus faces similar limitations with Olympus. Hades did not look pleased, but he couldn't argue with the fundamental rules of divine domains. How long will this investigation take? No idea, Naruto said cheerfully. Could be hours, could be days. Depends on how clever Erebus has been in covering his tracks, assuming it is Erebus. I don't like this, Hades muttered. You don't have to like it. You just have to let us do our job. Naruto turned to Persephone. Ready for an adventure, Flower Queen? Despite the gravity of the situation, Persephone smiled. When do we begin? Right now. Naruto glanced at Hera, who nodded her agreement. We'll start at the fields of Asphodel, talk to some of the recent arrivals, then trace the path backward. I shall prepare myself, Persephone said, moving toward a side door. When she had gone, Hades fixed Naruto with a penetrating stare. If any harm comes to her. Yeah, eternal torment, creative punishment, I've heard it all before. Naruto waved dismissively. Relax, Uncle Gloomy. I've been protecting the cosmic order since before you were a twinkle in Cronus's eye. Your wife is in good hands. Hades did not appear entirely reassured, but he nodded stiffly. There is one more thing you should know. I'm all ears. The Titans stir in Tartarus, Hades said quietly. Particularly Cronus. His dreams have been, troubling the guards. Naruto's casual expression faltered slightly. Cronus and Erebus. Now there's a combination I didn't need to think about. You believe they could be working together? Hera asked sharply. It would explain a lot, Naruto admitted. Erebus has the knowledge to intercept souls, but he's bound to the outer darkness. He'd need someone on this side of reality to do the actual harvesting. And Cronus seeks revenge against us all, Hades concluded grimly. Great, Naruto sighed. Cosmic revenge plots. Just what I wanted to deal with during my retirement. Persephone returned, now dressed in practical hunting attire, a short chiton of dark green, sturdy sandals laced up her calves, and a silver circlet holding back her flowing hair. A small knife hung at her belt. I am ready, she announced, her bearing both regal and determined. Naruto couldn't help but admire her transformation. This was no wilting flower goddess, but a queen ready for battle if necessary. Then let's go soul hunting, he said, offering an arm to each goddess. Ladies? Hera took his left arm with practiced grace, while Persephone hesitated only briefly before taking his right. With a casual salute to Hades, Naruto led them from the throne room. Just one question, Persephone said as they walked. If we're tracking missing souls, where exactly do we start? With death, of course, Naruto replied with a wink. And lucky for you both, I'm something of an expert. The mortal world lay under a blanket of unnatural winter. Fields that should have been golden with harvest stood empty and frost-covered. Trees stretched bare branches toward a sky heavy with unseasonal clouds. Demeter's grief manifested in dying crops and bitter winds. Cheery place, Naruto commented as they emerged from a shadow path onto a deserted road. Your mom really knows how to make a point. Persephone winced slightly. Mother has always been expressive. That's one word for it, Hera murmured, drawing her cloak tighter against the chill. They stood on a hilltop overlooking a small village. Smoke rose thinly from a few chimneys, but there was little other sign of life. No children played in the streets, no farmers worked the fields. The stillness felt oppressive, unnatural. Where are we? Persephone asked, looking around with concern. Somewhere in Thessaly, Naruto replied. Small enough that no one will notice us, large enough that death visits regularly. How pragmatic, Hera observed dryly. Naruto shrugged. Death usually is. He led them down the hill toward the village, his steps light despite the grim surroundings. As they drew closer, Persephone gasped softly. The soil, she whispered, kneeling to touch the frozen ground. It's dying. Not just dormant? Hera asked. Persephone shook her head. This is beyond winter sleep. The very essence of the earth is fading. She looked up at Naruto with troubled eyes. Could this be connected to the missing souls? Good question, he replied, impressed by her insight. Life and death are part of the same cycle. If one is disrupted, the other suffers as well, she finished. The souls return to the earth after their time in the underworld, bringing with them the essence of transformation. If they never complete their journey, the cycle breaks down, Naruto confirmed. You've got good instincts, Flower Queen. A faint blush colored Persephone's cheeks at the praise. She rose gracefully, brushing frost from her fingertips. What now? Now we find someone about to die, Naruto said matter-of-factly. And we follow their soul. Just like that? Hera raised an elegant eyebrow. Just like that. Naruto grinned and started walking toward the village. Death is happening all the time. You just have to know how to look. The village itself was as dismal as it had appeared from a distance. Thin, haggard-looking people hurried about their tasks with downcast eyes. Children clung to their mothers' skirts, faces pinched with hunger. The winter had come too soon, before the harvest could be gathered, and supplies were already dwindling. This is my mother's doing, Persephone murmured, anguish in her voice. These people suffer because of me. Because of choices many gods made, Hera corrected gently. Including Hades, Zeus, and Demeter herself. Responsibility gets messy when you start assigning it, Naruto agreed. Better to focus on fixing the problem than placing blame. They paused at the village well, where a cluster of women drew water. An elderly man sat nearby, wrapped in threadbare blankets despite the relative warmth of the day. His breathing came in labored gasps, his gnarled hands trembling. Naruto's eyes fixed on him immediately. There, he murmured. Our guide awaits. The old man? Persephone asked quietly. Pneumonia, Naruto nodded. Hours left, maybe less. His body can't fight the cold. Can't we help him? Persephone asked, distress evident in her voice. Naruto gave her a gentle look. Death isn't always the enemy, Flower Queen. He's lived a full life, 87 years. Raised children who raise children. His wife waits for him in your husband's realm. But to die of cold and illness is how most mortals go, Naruto finished. Quick and clean deaths are the exception, not the rule. Hera studied Naruto with thoughtful eyes. You know a great deal about him. I know a great deal about everyone who dies, Naruto replied simply. It comes with being the architect of the system. He approached the old man, who looked up with rheumy eyes. To the goddess's surprise, Naruto knelt beside him and spoke in a gentle voice. Cold day for sitting outside, grandfather. The old man's weathered face creased in a smile. Warm sun feels good on these old bones, young man. Not much comfort left for me these days. Your journey's almost over, Naruto said, not unkindly. Something flickered in the old man's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or acceptance. You see it too? The shadows? I do. Been waiting, the old man confided, his voice dropping to a whisper. My Lydia, she's calling. Says it's time to come home. She's right, Naruto agreed. It won't be long now. Good. The old man sighed, tension leaving his frail body. Good. Naruto placed a hand briefly on the man's shoulder, then rejoined the goddesses. Now we wait, he said quietly. And watch. That was kind, Persephone observed, surprise evident in her tone. Death doesn't have to be cruel, Naruto replied with a shrug. Anyway, he recognized me, or what I am, at least. Those close to death often do. They withdrew to the shade of a nearby olive tree, making themselves inconspicuous to mortal eyes with a minor glamour. The village continued its subdued activities around them, people moving like shadows of themselves. How exactly do we follow a soul? Hera asked after some time had passed. We'll see it leave, Naruto explained. Most can't, but the three of us have the sight for it. Then we trace its path toward the underworld, which is where things will get interesting. Because we'll see where it's intercepted, Persephone nodded in understanding. If it's intercepted, Hera corrected. We may not be so fortunate on our first attempt. Trust me, it will be, Naruto said grimly. Whatever's happening is systematic. It's not targeting specific souls, it's harvesting them in bulk. They fell silent as the old man's breathing grew more labored. A young woman, perhaps his granddaughter, brought him a cup of broth, which he refused with a weak gesture. She sat beside him for a while, holding his hand, then kissed his forehead and returned to her duties with tears in her eyes. She knows, Persephone whispered. They often do, Naruto agreed. Mortals sense these things better than they admit. As the afternoon light began to fade, the old man's breaths grew shallow and irregular. His eyes fixed on something distant, unseeable to ordinary vision. Now, Naruto murmured, touching both goddesses lightly on their arms. Watch. The old man drew a final, rattling breath, and then a subtle shift occurred. Something luminous and gossamer fine emerged from his body, taking the shape of a younger version of the man, strong-limbed and clear-eyed, free from the ravages of age and illness. His soul, Persephone breathed in wonder. The soul form looked around, momentarily confused, then smiled as it noticed something the living could not see. A woman's shape, equally luminous, reached out a hand in welcome. Lydia, Naruto confirmed softly. His wife. She's come to guide him. The souls embraced, their light mingling in a display of pure joy. Then, hand in hand, they turned toward a path that hadn't been visible a moment before, a shimmering trail leading away from the mortal world. Now we follow, Naruto said, stepping forward. Stay close to me. The path between realms can be disorienting. The goddesses nodded, and together they stepped onto the soul path behind the elderly couple. The mortal world faded around them, replaced by a landscape of shifting mists and distant lights. Other souls moved along the path as well, some alone, some in groups, all traveling toward the same destination. The road to the underworld, Hera observed, looking around with interest. I've never seen it from this perspective. Few gods bother to look, Naruto replied. They see the beginning, death, and the end, judgment, but not the journey between. They walked for what might have been minutes or hours, time flowed differently here, between the realms of living and dead. The souls ahead moved with purpose, drawn to their destination by cosmic law. Then, without warning, the path ahead darkened. What had been shimmering silver mist became tinged with oily shadows that writhed and reached like hungry tentacles. There, Naruto said sharply, pointing ahead. Watch. The souls of the old man and his wife approached the darkness, unaware of any danger. As they stepped into the shadowed section of path, something massive and formless surged up around them. For a heartbeat, they were suspended in the darkness, and then they were simply gone. Not passed through, not transformed, but erased from existence. No, Persephone gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. They were just consumed, Naruto finished grimly. Their energy harvested. Hera's expression hardened. Can you trace where it went? I can do better than that. Naruto's casual demeanor had vanished, replaced by something ancient and terrible. Golden light blazed in his eyes as he raised a hand toward the darkness. I can follow it. He thrust his arm into the shadow, which writhed and recoiled like a living thing. Naruto grimaced, his face contorting with effort, then yanked his arm back. A thread of darkness clung to his fingers, stretching away into some unseen distance. Gotcha, he muttered. Ladies, hold on to me. This might get rough. Persephone gripped his right arm while Hera took his left. Naruto took a deep breath, then pulled on the shadowy thread. Reality twisted around them, the path between realms shredding like wet paper. They fell through layers of existence, tumbling through void and chaos until they landed hard on solid ground. Persephone stumbled but kept her footing. Hera didn't so much as sway, her divine dignity intact even after interdimensional travel. Naruto shook his hand, dispelling the last of the shadow thread. Well, he said, looking around. This is unexpected. They stood in a vast cavern, far deeper and older than even Hades' realm. The walls glittered with crystals that shed cold blue light over everything. Massive columns of black stone rose to a ceiling lost in darkness. And everywhere, covering the floor, suspended in midair, clustered against the walls, were spheres of pulsing white light. Thousands upon thousands of them. Souls, Persephone whispered, horror in her voice. They're all souls. Not just souls, Naruto corrected grimly. Soul energy. Extracted and contained. Ready for use. Tartarus, Hera breathed, recognizing their location. We're in the deepest level of Tartarus. Below the Titan prison, Naruto agreed. Clever. Hide your soul harvesting operation in the one place Olympians avoid at all costs. He approached one of the floating spheres, studying it with narrowed eyes. The work is elegant. Efficient. Definitely Erebus's design, but implemented by someone with physical form. Cronus, Hera suggested. Or one of his children, Naruto agreed. The real question is, what are they planning to do with all this energy? As if in answer to his question, the cavern trembled slightly. From somewhere far below came a sound like a massive heartbeat, slow and ponderous. That, Persephone said quietly, doesn't sound good. It's not, Naruto confirmed, his expression grim. They're feeding the power to something. Something big. We should return to Olympus, Hera said urgently. Report what we found. Not yet. Naruto moved deeper into the cavern, following the rhythmic pulses. First, we need to see exactly what we're dealing with. Is that wise? Persephone asked, hurrying to keep up with his long strides. Probably not, Naruto admitted with a flash of his old grin. But when has that ever stopped me? They navigated through forests of crystal and fields of captured souls, always following the deep thrumming that grew louder with each step. The air grew heavier, charged with potential like the moment before lightning strikes. Finally, they reached the edge of a precipice. Below stretched a chasm so deep that even divine sight couldn't penetrate its depths. The pulses of energy came from this abyss, each one sending tremors through the cavern floor. What lies down there? Hera asked, her usual composure slipping slightly. Something old, Naruto replied, his voice unusually serious. Older than the Titans. Maybe older than me. Persephone knelt at the edge, placing her palm against the stone. Her eyes widened. It's awakening. Whatever sleeps below is stirring. With the power of thousands of consumed souls to fuel it, Naruto added grimly. This is worse than I thought. If Erebus is trying to wake what I think he is. A slow, sardonic clap interrupted him. They turned to find a figure emerging from the shadows behind them, tall and gaunt, with eyes like pools of liquid night. Impressive detective work, the newcomer said, his voice like stones grinding together. Though I expected nothing less from the great Nyx. Thanatos, Hera said coldly. You betrayed Olympus. The younger death god smiled thinly. I prefer to think of it as, choosing the winning side. There are no winners if Erebus succeeds, Naruto said, stepping protectively in front of the goddesses. You know what he wants to unleash. Of course I do, Thanatos replied. The end of all things. The final death that you were too weak to implement. Persephone gasped softly. You want to destroy everything? Not destroy, Thanatos corrected, almost gently. Transform. Return all to the primordial chaos from which it sprang. Begin anew, without the flawed design Nyx imposed on reality. You always were a glass half-empty kind of guy, Naruto said with forced lightness. But this? This is extreme even for you, Thanatos. The death god spread his tarnished wings. I merely fulfill my function. I am death. The end of all things is my ultimate purpose. No, it's not, Naruto countered. Death is transition, not termination. It's part of a cycle, not the end of everything. A comfortable lie you tell yourself, Thanatos sneered. But Erebus showed me the truth. Death should be absolute, final. The current system is inefficient. Inefficient? Persephone stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. Those are souls you're harvesting. People with lives and loves and memories. Energy, Thanatos corrected dispassionately. Raw material for a greater purpose. That's enough, Naruto said, his casual demeanor falling away completely. Power radiated from him in palpable waves, his eyes blazing golden in the dim light. I created death, Thanatos. I can uncreate you. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the death god's face. But before any of them could move, the cavern shook violently. Cracks appeared in the floor, and several of the soul spheres shattered, their energy flowing down into the abyss. Too late, Thanatos said, regaining his confidence. The awakening has begun. Even you cannot stop it now, Nyx. Watch me, Naruto growled. He turned to the goddesses. Get back to Olympus. Warn Zeus and Hades. Tell them Erebus is trying to wake chaos itself. We won't leave you, Persephone protested. This isn't a discussion. For once, Naruto's voice held no humor, no lightness. This is beyond both of you. Go. Now. Hera recognized the raw power emanating from him, power that had existed before the Titans, before Olympus. She nodded sharply and took Persephone's arm. He's right, she said firmly. This battle isn't ours. But, Persephone began. Another violent tremor cut her off as more cracks spread across the cavern floor. The abyss below growled like a waking beast. Go! Naruto shouted, golden energy beginning to swirl around him. Hera didn't wait for further argument. With divine strength, she pulled Persephone away, heading back the way they had come. The younger goddess resisted for only a moment before relenting, casting one last worried glance at Naruto. When they had disappeared among the crystal formations, Naruto turned back to Thanatos, who watched him with wary anticipation. You know you can't beat me, Naruto said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. I'm literally the guy who invented death. You're just the guy who took over the franchise. Perhaps not alone, Thanatos conceded. But I don't need to beat you. I only need to delay you until he rises. He's not rising today, Naruto replied. Sorry to disappoint. With that, he lunged forward faster than sight could follow, his fist connecting with Thanatos' jaw with a crack that echoed through the cavern. The younger death god flew backward, crashing through several soul spheres before slamming into a crystal column. That was for the old man and his wife, Naruto said, stalking forward. They deserved better than being soul fuel. Thanatos struggled to his feet, black ichor leaking from the corner of his mouth. You've grown soft, Nyx. You care too much for these, temporary beings. That's where you're wrong, Naruto replied, gathering energy between his palms. Caring is what makes me strong. The battle that followed was cataclysmic, two death gods unleashing power that had never been meant for direct confrontation. Thanatos fought with cold precision, his scythe cutting arcs of darkness through the air. Naruto countered with raw, creative force, golden energy shifting forms as rapidly as thought. Crystal columns shattered. Soul spheres exploded, their energy either absorbed by the combatants or drawn down into the awakening abyss. The cavern itself began to collapse around them as their power shook the foundations of Tartarus. Through it all, the pulsing from below grew stronger, faster, the heartbeat of something immense and ancient struggling toward consciousness. Naruto noticed with growing alarm that every soul sphere that broke sent its energy downward, feeding whatever lay in the depths. Even as he fought Thanatos, he was inadvertently helping the awakening. That's it, isn't it? He called out, dodging a scythe strike that would have separated his head from his shoulders. You're not trying to beat me. You're trying to make me break everything in sight. Thanatos smiled thinly. Perhaps you're not as rusty as I thought. Naruto immediately changed tactics, pulling his power inward instead of projecting it outward. The golden aura around him intensified, concentrated. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. Let's try something different. He vanished, reappearing directly behind Thanatos. Before the younger god could react, Naruto wrapped his arms around him in what looked almost like an embrace. What are you doing? Thanatos snarled, struggling against the hold. Taking back what's mine, Naruto replied, his voice eerily calm. I created death. I set its rules. And you, Thanatos, have broken them. Golden light began to flow from Naruto into Thanatos, not an attack, but something more fundamental. The younger death god screamed as ancient power invaded his being, searching, examining, judging. You perverted your purpose, Naruto continued, his voice rising over Thanatos' cries. Death exists to facilitate renewal, not to end everything. You forgot that. Erebus showed me the truth, Thanatos gasped, his form beginning to flicker. Erebus showed you what you wanted to see, Naruto corrected. Your own reflection, distorted by pride and jealousy. The golden light intensified until Thanatos was barely visible within it. His screams faded to whimpers, then to silence. When the light finally receded, Naruto stood alone, holding only Thanatos' scythe. He looked down at the weapon, then casually snapped it over his knee. Never liked these things anyway. Too dramatic. The cavern shook again, more violently than before. The heartbeat from below had become a continuous rumble, and the edges of the abyss glowed with malevolent energy. Right, Naruto muttered to himself. One down, one apocalypse to go. He approached the edge of the precipice, studying the swirling energies below. Thousands of souls had already been consumed, their power feeding whatever ancient entity Erebus sought to awaken. Stopping it would require something drastic. Naruto closed his eyes, reaching deep within himself to power he hadn't accessed in eons, the primal force that had allowed him to create death itself. Golden light erupted around him, so intense that it cast no shadows. "Sorry, Erebus," he called out to the darkness. "Your comeback tour is cancelled." With that, he dove headfirst into the abyss. The fall seemed endless. Wind rushed past him as he plummeted through layers of reality, each one darker and more primal than the last. The golden aura surrounding him illuminated briefly a massive form taking shape below, something with too many limbs and too many mouths, a chaos thing from before creation had rules. "Oh hell no," Naruto muttered, gathering his power. "You are way too ugly to be allowed back into the universe." As he approached the forming monstrosity, Naruto spread his arms wide, his aura expanding to engulf everything around him. Golden chains of light shot from his body, wrapping around the chaos entity, binding it. It fought back, of course. Tendrils of pure darkness lashed out, attempting to consume him as they had consumed thousands of souls. But Naruto was not a soul, he was the architect of death itself, a primordial force given form and purpose. "You know what your problem is?" he grunted as he tightened the chains of light. "You never adapted. The cosmos moved on, but you're still throwing the same old primordial temper tantrums." The entity roared, a sound that existed beyond hearing, felt rather than heard. Naruto grimaced as the darkness pressed in around him, trying to find weaknesses in his defenses. "Also," he added conversationally, "your timing sucks. If you tried this a few millennia ago, maybe you'd have had a shot. But I just got back from retirement, and I am really not in the mood for a cosmic reset." With a final surge of effort, Naruto pulled the chains tight. The entity thrashed and writhed, but the bindings held firm. Slowly, methodically, Naruto began to compress it, forcing its chaotic essence back into dormancy. "Sleep," he commanded, his voice resonating with power that predated gods and titans. "Sleep and dream of nothingness. Your time is past." Whether it was his power or his words that did it, the entity's struggles gradually subsided. The malevolent awareness faded, returning to the dormant state it had maintained since before time began. Naruto floated in the now quiet darkness, exhausted but satisfied. "Well," he said to no one in particular, "that could have gone worse." Then he remembered the thousands of harvested souls, their energy used to nearly wake an apocalyptic horror. With a weary sigh, he gathered his remaining strength and began to ascend. The climb back was harder than the fall. The boundaries between realms had been weakened by the conflict, making navigation treacherous. By the time Naruto dragged himself over the edge of the abyss and back into the crystal cavern, he felt drained in a way he hadn't experienced since creating death itself. "Note to self," he muttered, lying flat on his back on the cavern floor, "cosmic heroics are overrated." He stared up at the thousands of soul spheres still floating above him, their light pulsing weakly now that they were no longer being drawn downward. Each one represented a person who should have reached the underworld but had been intercepted and harvested. "Can't leave you guys like this," Naruto sighed, pushing himself to a sitting position. "That would be bad customer service." With a gesture that seemed casually simple but required immense power, he released the contained souls. They burst forth in streams of light, swirling around the cavern before orienting themselves toward their proper destination. Within moments, the air was filled with souls rushing to resume their interrupted journey to the underworld. Naruto watched them go with a satisfied smile. "That's more like it. Hades is going to have one hell of a busy day." When the last soul had departed, he struggled to his feet, swaying slightly with exhaustion. "Time to face the music," he murmured. "Bet Olympus is having a collective divine meltdown by now." With considerably less grace than his usual methods, Naruto tore open a portal between realms and stumbled through. Olympus was indeed in an uproar. Naruto emerged onto the marble steps of the Great Council Chamber to find gods arguing loudly, minor deities rushing about with messages, and nymphs huddled in frightened groups. Hera spotted him first, breaking off mid-sentence in her argument with Zeus. "Nix," she called, using his formal title in front of the assembly. "You're alive." All eyes turned to Naruto, who managed a tired grin and a mock bow. "Reports of my death would have been greatly exaggerated. Also inaccurate, since, you know, I'm death." Relief flashed across Persephone's face. She stood beside Hera, looking far more composed than many of the Olympians around her. Zeus rose from his throne, lightning crackling around him. "What happened?" Lady Hera and Lady Persephone reported catastrophe brewing in Tartarus. "Catastrophe averted," Naruto replied, making his way to the center of the chamber. He noticed with amusement that the gods parted before him like water. Thanatos was working with Erebus to harvest souls and wake something that really should stay asleep. "I put it back to bed." "And Thanatos?" Hades asked from his temporary throne. The Lord of the Underworld rarely attended Olympian councils, but this crisis had apparently warranted an exception. Naruto grimaced. "Unmade. He broke the fundamental laws of death. There are consequences for that, even for gods." A shocked murmur ran through the assembly. Gods could be defeated, imprisoned, even dismembered, but unmade? That was almost unheard of. Then who shall guide the dead? Demeter demanded, her withered appearance beginning to recover some of its former vitality now that the immediate crisis had passed. "The system will appoint a successor," Naruto said with a shrug. "Death always finds a way." "What of Erebus?" Hera asked. "Was he destroyed as well?" "No," Naruto admitted. "He wasn't physically present. He was working through Thanatos and possibly others. His bindings are weakened but still holding." "Then the threat remains," Zeus concluded grimly. "The immediate danger has passed," Naruto corrected. "The souls have been released to continue their journey. Whatever was waking in the depths is sleeping again. Erebus will need time to regroup and find new pawns." "How much time?" Athena asked, her strategic mind already working on contingencies. Naruto spread his hands. "Impossible to say. Could be centuries, could be days." "Then we must prepare," Zeus declared, lightning flashing around his throne for dramatic effect. Naruto bit back a smile. Zeus never could resist a theatrical moment. "You'll need a new death god, for starters. I recommend someone with a better moral compass than Thanatos. Perhaps you would consider resuming your former duties," Hades suggested quietly. All eyes turned to Naruto again, many gods nodding in agreement. He laughed, genuinely surprised by the suggestion. "Me? No thanks. Been there, done that, got the existential crisis." He shook his head. "I'm more of a consultant these days. Happy to offer advice, not looking for a full-time gig." Before anyone could argue, Persephone stepped forward. "I will oversee the transition," she offered. "As queen of the underworld, it falls within my domain." Hades looked at his young wife with surprise and something like pride. Demeter began to protest but fell silent at a sharp look from Hera. "An excellent suggestion," the Queen of Olympus said smoothly. "Lady Persephone has already demonstrated her insight into these matters during our investigation." Zeus frowned, clearly not thrilled at having decisions made without his input. But with Hades and Hera both supporting Persephone's proposal, he found himself outmaneuvered. "Very well," he conceded. "Lady Persephone will oversee the selection of Thanatos' successor, with Lord Hades' guidance and—" He hesitated, then added reluctantly, "Lord Nyx's consultation as needed." "Naruto," he corrected automatically. "Just Naruto is fine." Zeus ignored this. "The council is adjourned. We will reconvene when a successor has been chosen." As the gods began to disperse, Naruto found himself approached by both Hera and Persephone. That was well played, he told them with genuine admiration. Didn't give Zeus a chance to make it all about himself. Hera's lips curved in a small smile. Years of practice. Are you truly well? Persephone asked, concern evident in her voice. You look diminished. Just tired, Naruto assured her. Binding primordial horrors takes a lot out of a guy. Nothing a few decades of napping won't fix. You saved us all, Hera observed, studying him with those calculating eyes. Yet you seek no recognition, no power in return. Naruto shrugged. Power's overrated. I had the ultimate authority once, deciding who lives and who dies. Trust me, it gets old fast. Then what do you want? Persephone asked. The question caught him off guard. What did he want? He'd been wandering aimlessly for millennia, avoiding both gods and mortals, existing without purpose. Peace and quiet would be nice, he joked, deflecting. Maybe a vacation somewhere warm. The void between realms gets chilly. Neither goddess seemed convinced by his flippant answer. Before they could press further, Hades approached, his dark presence commanding attention. I owe you a debt, the lord of the underworld said formally. You have saved my realm and perhaps all realms from destruction. Don't mention it, Naruto replied with a wave. Seriously, don't. It'll ruin my reputation as a carefree retiree. Hades almost smiled, a rare expression for the solemn god. Nevertheless, should you ever require anything within my power to grant, you need only ask. I'll keep that in mind, Naruto promised. Though right now, all I really want is a comfortable place to crash for about a century. Our palace has many guest chambers, Persephone offered immediately. You would be welcome to rest there as long as you wish. A generous offer, Hera interjected smoothly, but perhaps Olympus would be more appropriate. After all, Lord Nyx will need to consult with the council regarding the new death god. Naruto looked between the two goddesses with amusement. Are you two fighting over where I get to take a nap? Persephone blushed slightly, while Hera maintained her dignified composure. Merely ensuring proper protocols are followed, the Queen of Olympus said. Of course, Persephone agreed, a hint of mischief entering her eyes. Though I would think the creator of death might prefer the comfort of the underworld to the ostentation of Olympus. I heard that, Zeus called from across the chamber. Naruto laughed, genuine warmth spreading through him for the first time in eons. These divine politics and subtle competitions were amusing when you weren't caught in the middle of them. Tell you what, he said, looking between Hera and Persephone. I'll split my time. Help set up the new death god situation in the underworld, consult with Olympus on strengthening the barriers against Erebus. Best of both worlds. A diplomatic solution, Hades observed dryly. I have my moments, Naruto replied with a grin. As the gods dispersed to their various duties, Naruto found himself standing alone in the council chamber. Through the massive windows, he could see the mortal world far below, already showing signs of recovery as Demeter's grief abated. For the first time in millennia, he felt something he'd almost forgotten, purpose. Not the burden of managing death, but something simpler, the satisfaction of helping, of making a difference. Ha, he said softly to himself. Maybe retirement was overrated after all. With a thoughtful expression, Naruto turned and walked toward the guest quarters of Olympus, already planning his approach to finding a worthy successor to Thanatos. Perhaps this unexpected return to divine politics wasn't such a bad thing. At the very least, it would be interesting. And after countless ages of solitude, interesting was definitely an improvement. Chapter 2, Divine Conspiracies. Morning light streamed through alabaster columns, painting gold patterns across Naruto's face as he dozed on a marble bench in one of Olympus's countless gardens. Birds sang nearby, their melodies impossibly perfect, engineered by divine whim rather than natural selection. Found you. A voice cut through his half-sleep. The entire pantheon's in crisis mode, and you're napping in a garden? Naruto cracked one eye open to find Persephone standing over him, hands on her hips. She traded her underworld attire for a chiton of deep green embroidered with tiny silver flowers that seemed to bloom and fade as she moved. Best place to think, he yawned, stretching like a cat. Olympus is too, everything. Loud. Shiny. Full of gods with god complexes. It's been 3 days, Persephone said, though her stern expression was softening. The council's meeting about selecting the new death god in an hour. Naruto swung his legs off the bench and patted the spot beside him. Join me. Unless you're in a rush to watch immortals bicker. After a moment's hesitation, she sat. Up close, Naruto noticed subtle changes in her appearance since their adventure in Tartarus. Her eyes held deeper knowledge, her posture more confident. The underworld had marked her, but not diminished her. So, he said conversationally. How's queenly life treating you? Hades still doing the overprotective husband routine? He's adjusting. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. Finding me in Tartarus facing down Thanatos was something of a shock. Bet it was. Gods get set in their ways after a few millennia. New experiences are good for them. Persephone plucked a nearby flower, which seemed to lean toward her fingers eagerly. Like having the primordial death god crash their perfectly ordered pantheon. Exactly. Naruto grinned. Keeping immortals on their toes is practically a public service. She twirled the flower between her fingers, studying him. You're not what I expected. So everyone keeps telling me. What did you expect? Doom and gloom. Skeleton face. Dramatic black cloak that billows without wind. Something like that, she admitted. The stories describe you as terrifying. Stories exaggerate. He leaned back, face turned toward the sun. Though I can do terrifying if the situation calls for it. Like with Thanatos. It wasn't a question. Naruto's smile faded slightly. Yeah. Like that. What did you do to him? Truly. He sighed, running a hand through his spiky hair. I unmade him. Not destroyed, unmade. There's a difference. His essence returns to the cosmic fabric. Maybe someday, parts of what was Thanatos will form something new. That's both horrible and merciful. Death usually is. Naruto stood suddenly, offering her his hand. Come on. I want to show you something before this meeting. Persephone took his hand, allowing him to pull her to her feet. What is it? Something you need to see if you're going to help choose the next death god. His blue eyes held unexpected seriousness. Something about what death really is. Without waiting for a response, Naruto tore open reality with a casual gesture. Unlike the portals she'd seen gods create before, this wasn't a clean doorway but a rippling tear in existence itself, edges fraying into golden light. Is that safe? She asked, eyeing the fracture warily. Probably. His grin returned. I mean, mostly. 60-40. Before she could protest, he tugged her through. They emerged not in the underworld as she'd expected, but in a mortal village. People bustled around them, completely unaware of the divine beings in their midst. The scent of fresh bread and livestock filled the air. Life, ordinary and beautiful, unfolded around them. Where are we? Persephone asked, instinctively keeping her voice low though she knew mortals couldn't hear them in this form. Nowhere special. Just a village in Thrace. Naruto guided her through the crowd. We're looking for, there. He pointed to a small house where a group of women had gathered. Their faces were drawn with worry as they entered and exited, carrying cloths and water. Someone's dying, Persephone realized. A young mother. Childbirth. Naruto's voice held no judgment, just simple acknowledgement. Come on. They passed through the solid wall of the house like ghosts. Inside, a young woman lay on a bed, her face pale and shining with sweat. A newborn infant wailed in the arms of an older woman while others worked frantically to stop the mother's bleeding. "We can't just watch," Persephone whispered, distressed. "We have to help her." Naruto placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "That's not why we're here. Watch. Really watch." Reluctantly, Persephone focused her divine sight on the young mother. As the woman's strength ebbed, something remarkable began to happen. A soft glow emanated from her body, not separating like the old man's soul had, but rippling outward in gentle waves. "What's happening?" Persephone asked. "She's dying," Naruto said softly. "But watch where her essence goes." The luminous energy flowing from the woman didn't rise toward some distant afterlife path. Instead, much of it flowed directly into the crying infant. The baby gradually quieted as the light enveloped it, seeming to draw strength and vitality from its mother's fading life. "She's giving herself to her child," Persephone whispered in awe. "Not consciously. It's how death works, energy transfers. Naruto gestured around the room. "Look closer." Persephone expanded her awareness. Now she could see tendrils of the woman's essence reaching toward others in the room, thinner streams flowing to the midwife who had delivered her baby, to the grieving sister who clutched her hand, to the elderly mother who rocked the newborn. She's becoming part of them all, Persephone realized. "This is what death truly is," Naruto explained. "Not an end, but a transformation. The essence of a life spreads outward, becoming part of everything it touched. Some goes to the underworld, the core identity, the consciousness. But so much remains here, woven into the fabric of other lives." The young mother drew a final, shuddering breath. As her consciousness faded, a more defined soul form rose from her body, similar to what Persephone had seen with the old man. But it was smaller, somehow less substantial, as if significant portions of her essence had already found new homes. "This is what Thanatos forgot," Naruto said quietly as they watched the soul begin its journey. "What Erebus rejects. Death isn't just about what crosses into the underworld. It's about what remains, what transforms, what continues in new forms." "It's beautiful," Persephone said, tears in her eyes. "It is." Naruto watched the soul depart with ancient eyes. "And the next death god needs to understand this balance. Otherwise, we risk another Thanatos, another crisis." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you'll help choose the successor. And because you exist at the boundary, life and death together. You can see both sides in a way few gods can." Before Persephone could respond, wailing erupted from the women around the bed as they realized the mother was gone. The baby, however, had fallen into peaceful sleep, wrapped in invisible threads of its mother's lingering essence. "Come on," Naruto said gently. "We've seen what we came for." He opened another tear in reality, and they stepped through, leaving the scene of mingled grief and new life behind. The Olympian council chamber buzzed with tense conversation when they arrived. Zeus sat on his massive throne looking irritated, while Hera beside him maintained a mask of serene patience. Other gods filled the remaining seats, their expressions ranging from bored to anxious. Finally, Zeus boomed when he spotted them. "We've been waiting." "Sorry," Naruto replied, not sounding sorry at all. "Had to give the future death god selector a crash course in metaphysics." Persephone slipped quietly to her temporary seat among the minor deities while Naruto strolled casually to the center of the chamber. "So," he said, looking around at the assembled immortals. "Let's talk death god candidates. Any nominations?" Apollo stepped forward. "I nominate my son Asclepius." "His understanding of life and death, disqualified," Naruto interrupted. "On what grounds?" Apollo demanded, affronted. "He's too invested in preventing death. Great doctor, would make a terrible death god." Before Apollo could protest further, Ares spoke up. "Then I submit myself. Who understands death better than the god of war?" Naruto snorted. "You understand killing. Not the same thing. Ares flushed with anger. You dare, yeah, war god, very scary. Naruto waved dismissively. Next. One by one, gods offered themselves or their children for the position. Naruto rejected them all with blunt assessments that left several immortals seething. Zeus's frustration grew visibly with each dismissal. Perhaps, Hera suggested smoothly after yet another rejection, Lord Nyx has someone specific in mind. All eyes turned to Naruto, who scratched his chin thoughtfully. Well, there's one option nobody's mentioned, he said. Someone who already understands the balance between life and death. Someone who's seen both sides. Who? Zeus demanded. Naruto pointed directly at Persephone. Stunned silence fell across the chamber. Absurd. Demeter was first to recover, rising from her seat. My daughter is the goddess of spring, of growth. And queen of the underworld, Naruto countered. Life and death in one package. Perfect balance. She has no experience, Apollo began. She has exactly the experience needed, Naruto cut in. Fresh perspective, connection to both realms, and she actually gives a damn about maintaining the proper balance. Persephone herself looked shocked. I never considered. Of course you didn't, Naruto said kindly. The best candidates rarely nominate themselves. Hades, who had been silent until now, rose from his obsidian throne. My wife has proven herself capable beyond expectation, he said, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. I support this nomination. Demeter looked betrayed. Hades. You can't possibly think, mother, Persephone interrupted, finding her voice. I am no longer simply your daughter to be protected. I am queen of the underworld. And if I can serve both realms in this capacity. She took a deep breath. I am willing. Zeus frowned, clearly unhappy with this development. The death god is a position of great power. Traditionally it has been held by a male deity, really? Naruto raised an eyebrow. You're going with gender politics? The fates are female, and they literally control destiny. Nyx, the original me, was perceived as female half the time. Zeus glowered but didn't continue that line of argument. Athena stood, gray eyes calculating. There is wisdom in this suggestion. Lady Persephone bridges realms in a way no other god does. Additionally, as consort to Hades, her loyalty to Olympus is assured. The strategic implication was clear: keep the power within the family. Murmurs of consideration rippled through the assembly. Hera caught Naruto's eye across the chamber and gave him an almost imperceptible nod of approval. I propose a test, Hera announced, rising gracefully. Let Lady Persephone attempt to guide a soul to judgment. If she succeeds, her suitability will be proven. Excellent idea, Naruto agreed quickly. Practical demonstration beats divine politics any day. Zeus looked between his wife and Naruto with suspicion, clearly sensing an alliance he hadn't anticipated. Very well, he conceded reluctantly. Lady Persephone will undergo a test of her abilities. Lord Hades and Naruto will oversee this trial. And I will observe as well, Hera added smoothly. To ensure Olympus's interests are represented. Zeus's eyebrows shot up at his wife's unusual request to leave Olympus, but he merely nodded stiffly. Persephone stood, her back straight and her expression resolute despite the shock still evident in her eyes. I accept this challenge. Then this council is adjourned until the test is complete, Zeus declared, lightning crackling around his throne for emphasis. As the gods dispersed, Naruto made his way to where Persephone stood, now surrounded by Hades and a still protesting Demeter. Cannot believe you're encouraging this madness, Demeter was saying. My daughter, a death god? It's unnatural. What's unnatural, Naruto interjected, is treating a grown goddess like she's a helpless nymph. Demeter whirled on him, eyes flashing. You! This is your doing, mother, Persephone said firmly. Enough. This is my decision. Demeter looked as if she'd been slapped. She opened her mouth to argue further, but something in her daughter's steady gaze stopped her. We shall see how this test unfolds, she said finally, her tone icy. With a rustle of grain-laden robes, she swept from the chamber. Well, that went well, Naruto observed cheerfully. Naruto, Persephone said, a hint of exasperation in her voice. Why didn't you warn me about your recommendation? Would you have agreed if I'd approached you privately? She hesitated. I don't know. Exactly. Sometimes people need to be thrown into the deep water to discover they can swim. He grinned. Besides, your face was priceless. Hades cleared his throat. While I support my wife's nomination, I share her question. Why Persephone? Naruto's expression grew more serious. Because she understands what you and I understand, Lord Hades, that death is transformation, not termination. She sees both sides of the equation in a way most gods never will. He turned to Persephone. Plus, you've got compassion without sentimentality. You'll make the hard calls when needed without becoming callous. Persephone looked somewhat overwhelmed by his assessment. The test will not be simple, Hades warned. Guiding souls is complex work, requiring both authority and subtlety. She'll nail it, Naruto said confidently. Especially with a little coaching beforehand. I believe that can be arranged, came Hera's voice as she joined their circle. The trial is set for tomorrow at dawn. That gives us time to prepare. Hades bowed slightly to his sister-in-law. Lady Hera. Your interest in this matter is unexpected. Many things have been unexpected lately, she replied with a pointed glance at Naruto. Including finding allies where one least anticipates them. I'm just full of surprises, Naruto agreed cheerfully. So, training session. Underworld field trip. First, Hera said firmly, we should discuss matters privately. Certain concerns have come to my attention that may affect tomorrow's test. Something in her tone made Naruto's instincts sharpen. What kind of concerns? Not here, Hera murmured, her eyes scanning the chamber where minor deities and servants still lingered. Hades nodded in understanding. My palace would be secure. Actually, Naruto said, I know somewhere even better. This, Hera observed dryly, is your idea of secure. They stood on a tiny island in the middle of a vast, mist-shrouded lake. A single twisted olive tree provided the only landmark on the otherwise barren rock. Limbo, Naruto confirmed. Between realms, outside normal time. Nobody can eavesdrop here because technically, here doesn't exist. Fascinating, Persephone murmured, kneeling to touch the strange not quite solid ground. I can feel everything and nothing. It's a boundary space, Naruto explained. Like you, existing between states. Hades studied their surroundings with professional interest. I've heard of such places but never visited one. How did you create it? Didn't create it so much as find it. The cosmos has natural folds and pockets. Naruto patted the gnarled olive tree affectionately. This little spot has been my thinking place for, well, longer than any of you have been around. Charming, Hera said, though her tone suggested otherwise. Now, shall we discuss the matter at hand? Naruto hopped up to sit on a low branch of the olive tree. You mentioned concerns. Let me guess, someone's plotting against our little death god succession plan. How perceptive, Hera replied. Though perhaps unsurprising, given your involvement in similar transitions before. Who? Hades asked directly. Hera's regal features hardened. There have been meetings. Ares, Apollo, even Poseidon. They believe the position should go to one of their sons. Classic Olympian nepotism, Naruto snorted. That alone would be manageable, Hera continued. However, my handmaiden overheard mention of outside assistance. Someone providing ancient power to ensure their success. Naruto's casual demeanor vanished. Erebus. Or his agents, Hera agreed. With Thanatos gone, he'll need new pawns. And what better pawns than ambitious gods who already resent Persephone's elevation? Hades concluded grimly. Persephone had been listening quietly, her expression thoughtful. If they mean to sabotage the test, we should proceed anyway, but prepared for interference. Naruto beamed at her like a proud teacher. See? This is why you're perfect for the job. Strategic thinking. What's your assessment of the threat level? Hades asked Hera. Significant, she replied. My sources suggest they have acquired some artifact of power to use during the test. Something that can interfere with soul guidance. Naruto swung his legs, thinking. We'll need a countermeasure. Something unexpected. He glanced at Persephone. How do you feel about a crash course in primordial death techniques? The kind of stuff I used before Thanatos, before the current system was fully established. Is that allowed? She asked. Who's gonna stop us? I invented the rules. He grinned. Besides, if they're bringing ancient power to the party, we should too. Hades looked concerned. Some primordial techniques are dangerous, unstable, only if you don't know what you're doing, Naruto interrupted. And she'll have the best teacher in existence. He pointed at himself with both thumbs. It would give us an advantage they won't anticipate, Hera noted. And if Erebus is indeed involved, conventional methods may prove insufficient. Persephone straightened, resolve hardening her delicate features. Teach me. That's the spirit. Naruto hopped down from the tree. First lesson, understanding death's true nature isn't about ending life, but transforming it. Remember what I showed you with the young mother? She nodded. Good. Now imagine that process, but in reverse. Instead of life flowing outward in death, you gather those dispersed energies back together. Naruto held out his hand, and golden light began swirling above his palm, coalescing into a pulsing sphere. Like this. Persephone mirrored his gesture, concentrating. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, wisps of green-tinged light began gathering above her palm. That's it, Naruto encouraged. You already have an instinctive connection to life energy as a spring goddess. Death energy isn't its opposite, it's just life energy in a different state. The light above Persephone's hand grew stronger, shifting from green toward gold. Remarkable, Hades murmured. Most gods take centuries to grasp this concept. Most gods don't exist at the boundary like she does, Naruto replied, watching Persephone's progress with satisfaction. Plus, she's not carrying millennia of preconceptions about how death should work. For the next several hours, they remained in the limbo space while Naruto taught Persephone techniques that hadn't been used since the early days of the cosmos. Hades occasionally offered insights from his perspective as ruler of the dead, while Hera observed with keen interest, sometimes asking pointed questions that helped clarify complex concepts. As Persephone mastered each lesson with surprising speed, Naruto found himself genuinely impressed. There was a natural affinity to her work, a fluid grace that came from her unique position straddling life and death. Try again, but this time, focus on the connection between the dispersed energy and its source, he instructed as she attempted to simulate guiding a fractured soul. Persephone closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration. The simulated soul fragments they'd been working with, little more than shaped energy Naruto had created for practice, began moving with more purpose, drawn together by invisible threads of connection. Good. Now feel how each piece remembers its wholeness, even when separated. That memory is what you use to guide them home. The fragments merged smoothly, forming a complete soul sphere that pulsed with gentle light. Perfect, Naruto said with genuine pride. You're a natural. Persephone opened her eyes, surprise evident as she saw the perfectly formed soul hovering before her. I felt it, she said wonderingly. The yearning to be whole again. That's the core principle of soul guidance, Hades confirmed. All pieces seek reunification, whether in the underworld or through rebirth. One more technique, Naruto said, dispelling the practice soul with a wave. This one's for emergencies only. If something tries to corrupt or capture a soul you're guiding, like our conspirators might attempt. He held out both hands this time, and a complex pattern of golden light formed between them, a web of interconnected symbols that shifted and changed continuously. This is a soul shield. It temporarily binds the soul to your own divine essence, placing it under your direct protection. Nothing can touch it without going through you first. That sounds intimate, Persephone observed. It is, Naruto confirmed seriously. That's why it's emergency only. Creating that kind of connection leaves traces on both the soul and the guide. Persephone studied the pattern carefully. Show me again. Naruto repeated the demonstration, moving more slowly this time so she could follow the complex configurations. After several attempts, Persephone managed to create a simplified version of the shield, not as powerful as Naruto's but functional. That'll do, he said, satisfied. With practice, you'll refine it. She's learned in hours what took most death gods decades, Hades remarked, undisguised pride in his voice. Because she's not just learning, she's remembering something her nature already knows, Naruto explained. The principles are written in her divine DNA, so to speak. Hera, who had been mostly observing, finally spoke. The sun is setting in the mortal realm. We should return and rest before tomorrow's test. Good call, Naruto agreed. Persephone, you should meditate tonight on what you've learned. Let it sink in. She nodded, exhaustion evident despite her divine stamina. Thank you for teaching me. All of you, she added, including Hades and Hera in her grateful glance. Don't thank us yet, Naruto warned. Tomorrow's where it gets real. And if our friends are planning interference, it won't be a smooth ride. I'm ready, Persephone said with quiet determination. Naruto studied her for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, he said softly. I think you are. Dawn broke over Mount Olympus in spectacular fashion, rays of Apollo's chariot painting the marble structures in gold and rose. Gods and minor deities gathered in the eastern courtyard, where a temporary gateway to the mortal realm had been established for the test. Zeus sat upon a portable throne, looking regal if somewhat bored. Beside him, Hera maintained her serene expression, though Naruto caught the calculating gleam in her eye as she observed the assembled gods. Ares, Apollo, and Poseidon stood together, attempting casual conversation that didn't quite hide their anticipation. Each had a son nearby, strong, handsome young gods clearly dressed to impress. Your fan club's here, Naruto murmured to Persephone as they waited at the edge of the courtyard. She wore a gown that blended the dark hues of the underworld with embroidered spring flowers, a visual representation of her dual nature. At Naruto's suggestion, she'd braided small silver beads into her hair that caught the light like stars. I see them, she replied softly. And the artifact? Can't spot it yet. Could be anything, amulet, weapon, crown. Keep your eyes open. Hades joined them, his dark presence causing nearby nymphs to scatter nervously. All is prepared, he said. A soldier died at dawn in a village to the north. His soul awaits guidance. Perfect, Naruto nodded. Military souls are usually more coherent, easier to work with. Zeus rose, silencing the courtyard chatter with his mere presence. We gather to witness Lady Persephone's test of suitability for the position of death god, he announced. She will attempt to guide a newly departed soul to proper judgment in the underworld. Lord Hades and Naruto will evaluate her performance. And I shall observe on behalf of Olympus, Hera added smoothly, ignoring Zeus's slight frown at her intervention. Yes, Zeus agreed reluctantly. Are you prepared, Lady Persephone? She stepped forward, her bearing regal despite the tension evident in her shoulders. I am, Lord Zeus. Then proceed. He gestured toward the gateway. Before Persephone could move, Apollo stepped forward. If I might suggest, he said with practiced diplomatic smoothness, perhaps my son Achesios should attempt the test as well. For comparison. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Zeus looked momentarily taken aback but quickly recovered. A reasonable suggestion, he agreed, a bit too readily for Naruto's liking. Any objections? Naruto caught Hera's subtle head shake, not yet, and held his tongue. None from me, Persephone said calmly. I welcome the company. Apollo's son, a handsome god with his father's golden hair and confident smile, bowed to Persephone with exaggerated courtesy. The honor is mine, Lady Persephone. 2 guides for 1 soul. Hades questioned. That is not how death typically operates. Consider it a race, then, Ares suggested with poorly concealed eagerness. 2 souls, 2 guides. The superior candidate will be evident. Agreed, Zeus said before Hades could object further. 2 souls shall be selected. Naruto studied Achesios carefully, noting the amber amulet hanging at his throat, unnaturally dark for such a stone, pulsing with subtle power. There's our artifact, he murmured to Hades. Around Junior's neck. Hades nodded almost imperceptibly. A soul trap, if I'm not mistaken. Ancient design. Bingo. Makes the soul guidance fail by capturing the soul mid-journey. Naruto grinned suddenly. Good thing we prepared for exactly that, huh? Zeus raised his hands dramatically. Let the test begin. The gateway shimmered, expanding to reveal a misty path leading down to the mortal realm. Persephone and Achesios stepped forward together, entering the mist side by side. Naruto turned to Hera. You thinking what I'm thinking? That our conspirators moved exactly as predicted, she replied quietly. Indeed. Gonna follow them, Naruto said. Keep an eye on things here. Hera nodded. Be subtle. Naruto snorted. Please. Subtle is my middle name. Before she could respond to this obvious falsehood, he slipped into the mist, following the candidates at a discreet distance. The path wound downward through layers of reality, gradually solidifying into a dirt road leading to a small military encampment. Smoke rose from a pyre where 2 bodies lay draped in simple cloths, awaiting cremation. Persephone and Achesios stood a respectful distance apart, each focusing on one of the fallen soldiers. The souls had already begun to emerge, translucent forms hovering uncertainly above their former bodies. Naruto concealed himself behind a copse of trees, suppressing his divine aura to avoid detection. He watched as Achesios approached his assigned soul with practiced charm, speaking gentle words of encouragement. The soul responded well, its form growing more distinct as it accepted its state. Persephone's approach was different, quieter, more empathetic. She didn't speak at first, simply extended her awareness toward the confused soul, allowing it to sense her receptive presence. The soldier's soul gradually oriented toward her, drawn to the balance of life and death she embodied. Clever girl, Naruto murmured approvingly. Let the soul come to you. Both guides began the journey back toward the judgment realms, their souls following willingly. For a while, everything proceeded normally, suspiciously so, in Naruto's estimation. When they reached the halfway point, the misty borderlands where mortal reality thinned and the underworld began to assert influence, Achesios made his move. Lady Persephone, he called, his tone solicitous. Your soul seems distressed. Perhaps I can assist. Persephone's soul was, in fact, perfectly calm. She glanced at Achesios with well-disguised suspicion. It's kind of you to offer, but we're managing well. I insist, he persisted, moving closer. The amulet at his throat began to pulse more visibly, dark energy seeping from it like smoke. I have a technique that might help stabilize both our charges. As he approached, the darkness from the amulet spread outward, reaching hungry tendrils toward both souls. His own soul guide abruptly vanished, an illusion dispelled, revealing that he had never been guiding a soul at all. Now, he shouted, as if signaling someone unseen. The darkness surged forward, attempting to engulf Persephone's soul. But she was ready. With fluid grace, she stepped between the attack and her charge, hands moving in the precise pattern Naruto had taught her. The soul shield formed around the soldier's spirit, not perfect, but effective. The dark tendrils slammed against it, unable to penetrate. "What are you doing?" Persephone demanded, maintaining her concentration on the shield. "You would corrupt a soul for political gain." Akisios sneered, his charming facade discarded. "Politics? This is about cosmic order. Death cannot be governed by a fertility goddess playing at power. Better than a spoiled godling playing with forces beyond his understanding," she retorted. "That amulet isn't just capturing souls, it's corrupting them, feeding them to something else." His expression flickered with brief uncertainty. "What? Whoever gave you that trinket didn't tell you the whole story, did they?" Persephone pressed her advantage. "Check the connection. Feel where the energy flows." For a moment, doubt crossed Akisios's face. He glanced down at the amulet, perhaps sensing for the first time the deeper currents of power running through it. That moment of distraction was all Persephone needed. With her free hand, she made a quick, slashing gesture toward the amulet. Green-gold energy, a perfect blend of life and death, struck the dark stone, fracturing its surface. "No!" Akisios cried, clutching the amulet protectively. Too late. Cracks spread across the amber, releasing not just darkness but screaming wisps of corrupted soul energy, dozens, perhaps hundreds of them, twisting in agony as they were suddenly freed. "What have you done?" Akisios stared in horror at the tormented soul fragments swirling around him. "Revealed the truth," Persephone replied grimly. "Your ancient power was feeding on souls." The fractured amulet began to shake violently in Akisios's hand. Dark energy pulsed from it in erratic bursts, no longer controlled but chaotic and dangerous. "Drop it!" Naruto shouted, abandoning his concealment to rush forward. "It's destabilizing." Akisios looked up in shock at Naruto's sudden appearance, then back at the amulet with growing terror. He tried to throw it away, but the darkness had begun crawling up his arm, tendrils wrapping around his wrist like hungry vines. "I can't," he cried, genuine fear replacing his earlier arrogance. "It won't let go." Naruto reached them in 3 long strides. "Persephone, maintain that soul shield. Don't let your charge go, no matter what happens." She nodded, her concentration never wavering from the protected soul. "As for you," Naruto grabbed Akisios's trapped arm, golden energy flaring around his hand, "let's see who gave you this nasty little toy." He plunged his power into the amulet's darkness, following the connections backward to their source. Images flashed through his mind, Apollo handing the amulet to his son, but before that, a hooded figure passing it to Apollo in a shadowed grove, and before that. "Erebus," Naruto snarled, recognizing the distinctive energy signature. Of course. The amulet gave a final violent pulse, then shattered completely. The explosion of dark energy threw all 3 of them backward. Naruto managed to twist mid-air, landing in a defensive crouch. Persephone somehow maintained her footing and, more importantly, her soul shield, protecting her charge despite the chaos. Akisios wasn't so fortunate. He lay sprawled on the misty ground, his arm blackened where the amulet had touched him, his eyes wide with shock. The released soul fragments swirled in a frenzied vortex above them, their agonized keening filling the borderlands. Without a containing vessel, they were wild, dangerous, and still corrupted by whatever process had harvested them. "This is bad," Naruto muttered, assessing the situation rapidly. "Those fragments are too far gone for normal guidance. What do we do?" Persephone asked, still protecting her soul charge while eyeing the swirling vortex with alarm. "I need to clean up this mess," Naruto replied, rising to his full height. "You complete your mission. Get your soul to judgment, that's still the test." But, go, he insisted. This is exactly what they want, to disrupt the test, make you fail. Don't give them the satisfaction. Persephone hesitated only briefly before nodding in determination. What about him? She gestured toward the fallen Achesios. I'll handle Junior too. Now go, the path ahead is clear. With a final concerned glance at the soul vortex, Persephone continued her journey, guiding her protected soul toward the underworld with steady purpose. When she was safely beyond the immediate danger, Naruto turned his attention to the corrupted soul fragments. They were multiplying somehow, dividing and redividing like spiritual cells gone cancerous. Well, this is just great, he muttered, rolling up his non-existent sleeves. Erebus definitely leveled up his soul corruption game. He gathered his power, not the controlled, refined energy he'd been teaching Persephone, but something older, rawer. Golden light blazed around him, so bright it seemed to burn away the mists of the borderland. All right, lost ones, he addressed the soul fragments directly. Time to go home. Naruto thrust his hands into the vortex. Pain shot through him immediately as the corrupted energy resisted, attacking his essence like acid. He gritted his teeth and pushed deeper, searching for the original pattern beneath the corruption. There, faint but present, the memory of wholeness that all souls carried. He latched onto it, amplifying it, forcing the fragments to remember what they had been before Erebus's tampering. Remember yourselves, he commanded, his voice resonating with primordial authority. Remember your path. The vortex slowed, fragments gradually ceasing their frantic multiplication. Some began to realign with others, seeking their original configurations. But others were too far gone, their corruption too complete to recall their former nature. Naruto made a difficult decision. Those beyond saving, he would have to unmake, return to raw cosmic energy rather than let them continue in tortured, corrupted states. With careful precision, he separated the salvageable fragments from the irredeemable, gathering the latter into a contained sphere of golden light. I'm sorry, he whispered to them. May your essence find better form in the next cycle. Then he compressed the sphere, applying the pressure of pure creation until the corrupted fragments broke down completely, reduced to primal energy free of Erebus's taint. He released this energy gently into the cosmic fabric, where it would eventually become part of new formation. The remaining fragments, those still capable of remembering themselves, he guided more carefully, weaving together their fractured patterns until they formed coherent, if diminished, souls once more. Go, he told them softly. Your judgment awaits. Your journey continues. They drifted away, following the path to the underworld that had been denied them when they were captured. Exhausted but satisfied, Naruto finally turned to Achesios, who had been watching the entire process with stunned disbelief. You, Naruto said, his voice deceptively casual as he crouched beside the young god, have been played for a fool. I didn't know, Achesios whispered, staring at his blackened arm. I swear, I didn't know what it was truly doing. Maybe not, Naruto conceded. But you knew you were cheating. Corrupting the test. Willing to sabotage another candidate for your own gain. Shame crossed the young god's handsome features. My father said, yeah, I'm sure he said lots of things. About duty and destiny and your rightful place. Naruto examined the damaged arm with clinical detachment. The question is, what are you going to say now? To Zeus? To the council? Fear replaced shame. They'll punish me. My father too, perhaps. Probably, Naruto agreed. Unless you tell the truth. All of it. Where the amulet came from. Who gave it to Apollo. What you were told it would do. Achesios hesitated, conflict evident in his eyes. Look, Naruto said more gently, beginning to heal the corrupted arm with careful application of his power. Erebus used you. Used your ambition, your father's pride. That's what he does, finds weaknesses, exploits them. The real question is whether you're going to let him keep using you by hiding his involvement. The young god winced as healing energy penetrated the corruption, cleaning it from his divine flesh. It will dishonor my father. Your father dishonored himself when he accepted help from forces he knew were dangerous, Naruto countered. But he can redeem himself by admitting it, by helping us understand what Erebus is planning. As the healing progressed, Akisio seemed to find new resolve. You're right, he said finally. I will tell Zeus everything. Good man, Naruto said, finishing the healing with a final pulse of energy. Now let's get back to Olympus. I think Persephone should be finishing her test right about now. They emerged from the gateway to find the Olympian courtyard in an uproar. Gods argued loudly while nymphs and minor deities watched wide-eyed from the periphery. At the center of it all stood Persephone, calm and composed beside the transparent form of her soldier's soul, which waited peacefully for final transport to the underworld. Zeus loomed over her, thunder literally crackling in his beard. Completely unacceptable. The test was corrupted, the results invalid. The test showed exactly what it needed to show. Hera's cool voice cut through her husband's bluster. Lady Persephone not only guided her soul successfully but protected it from deliberate sabotage. Sabotage that conveniently eliminated her competitor. Poseidon rumbled suspiciously. Apollo stood slightly apart, his usual radiance dimmed, his expression carefully blank as he watched the proceedings. Naruto cleared his throat loudly, drawing all attention to where he and Akisios had just emerged from the gateway. Speaking of competitors, he announced cheerfully, look who I found. Apollo rushed forward. My son. Are you injured? I'm well, father, Akisios replied, his voice stronger than Naruto had expected. Thanks to Naruto's intervention. What happened? Zeus demanded. Akisios stepped forward, facing the assembly with newfound courage. I attempted to sabotage Lady Persephone's test using this. He held up the shattered remains of the amulet. It was given to my father by a hooded figure who promised it would ensure my success. Shocked murmurs ran through the crowd. Apollo paled visibly. The amulet was corrupted, Akisios continued. It wasn't just meant to capture souls, but to harvest their energy for something else. Something ancient and dark. Erebus, Naruto confirmed, stepping beside the young god. His energy signature was all over that trinket. He's still recruiting, still building power, just found new pawns after Thanatos failed him. Zeus turned furiously to Apollo. You brought a corrupted artifact into Olympus. Endangered the entire pantheon for your son's advancement. Apollo drew himself up, though his usual confidence was notably absent. I did not know its true nature. I was told it was simply an ancient tool for soul guidance, more efficient than current methods. And you didn't question why this mysterious benefactor wanted your son to become death god? Hera asked with deadly softness. Apollo faltered. I believed it was recognition of our family's rightful place in the cosmic hierarchy. Pride, Hades observed from where he stood beside Persephone. The eternal weakness of Olympians. Before the situation could deteriorate further, Persephone stepped forward, her soul charge still calmly waiting beside her. If I may, she said, her voice quiet but carrying authority that surprised many present, perhaps we should complete my test before continuing this discussion. This soldier has waited patiently for his final journey. Her simple statement refocused the assembly on the original purpose of the gathering. Zeus, though clearly still angry, nodded stiffly. Proceed, he commanded. Persephone turned to her soul charge with gentle respect. You have been most patient, she told the transparent soldier. Are you ready for judgment? The soul nodded, its form becoming more distinct as it focused on her voice. Persephone reached out, not touching the soul but creating a connection with it, a bridge of green-gold energy that linked them without constraining. Then let us complete your journey. She made a graceful gesture, and a doorway appeared, not torn roughly through reality as Naruto might have done, but coaxed into existence, reality parting willingly at her request. Through the doorway, the fields of asphodel were visible, and beyond them, the distant palace of Hades where judgment would occur. The soul moved forward eagerly, pausing only to offer what appeared to be a salute of respect to Persephone before passing through. The doorway closed behind it with the gentlest of sighs, leaving no trace of its existence. Silence fell across the courtyard. Even Zeus seemed momentarily at a loss for words. Hades was first to break the silence. "The test is complete," he announced formally. Lady Persephone has successfully guided a soul to judgment, demonstrating both technical skill and the necessary compassion the role requires. Despite deliberate interference, Hera added pointedly, with a cold glance toward Apollo. Zeus cleared his throat. "The council must deliberate." "Oh come on," Naruto interrupted with exaggerated exasperation. "Are we really going to pretend there's still a question here?" She aced the test while someone else literally tried to sabotage her. "What more do you want?" Several gods nodded in agreement, including, surprisingly, Ares. "The death god test was my suggestion," the war god rumbled. "And while I had hoped for a different outcome, I cannot deny that Lady Persephone proved herself worthy. She protected her charge in battle conditions, that earns my respect." One by one, other gods voiced similar sentiments, leaving Zeus increasingly isolated in his reluctance. Finally, he sighed heavily. "Very well. Lady Persephone has demonstrated the necessary qualities to assume the role of death god." He fixed her with a stern gaze. "Do you accept this sacred duty, with all its responsibilities and burdens?" Persephone stepped forward, her bearing both humble and confident. "I do, Lord Zeus. I will guide the dead with compassion and wisdom, maintaining the balance between realms as is my unique position." "Then it is settled," Zeus declared, trying to sound as if this had been his preference all along. "Lady Persephone shall be formally installed as death god at tomorrow's full council." As the assembly began to disperse, Naruto made his way to Persephone's side, where Hades and Hera had already gathered. "Told you you'd nail it," he said with a grin. "You did," she agreed, allowing herself a small smile of satisfaction. "Though I don't think any of us anticipated quite so much drama." "Actually," Hera said dryly, "some of us anticipated exactly that much drama." "Which reminds me," Hades turned to Naruto. "The corrupted souls, were you able to help them?" Naruto's expression sobered. "Some. The ones too far gone I had to recycle. Return to raw energy. The others I managed to reconstruct enough for judgment." "And the amulet?" Persephone asked. "Definitely Erebus's work, but adapted for someone with physical form to use. He's getting creative with his workarounds." Naruto glanced toward where Apollo stood in tense conversation with Achesios. "The real question is how many other little presents he's handed out to disgruntled Olympians." "A concerning thought," Hera murmured. "I shall have my servants be especially vigilant." "We should investigate further," Hades suggested. "This may be just one tendril of a larger plot." "Agreed," Persephone said firmly. "And now that I'm to be officially installed, I'll have authority to follow soul disruptions wherever they lead." Naruto beamed at her with unmistakable pride. "Look at you, 5 minutes on the job and already planning investigations. You're going to be amazing at this." A light blush colored her cheeks. "I had excellent teachers." "Speaking of which," Hades said, turning to Naruto, "I believe we owe you a debt of gratitude. Without your instruction, Persephone might not have been prepared for today's challenges." "Ah, it was nothing," Naruto waved dismissively. "Teaching comes naturally when you've been around since before teaching was invented." Hera studied him thoughtfully. "You seem invested in this outcome. More so than I would have expected from someone who claimed to prefer retirement. What can I say? Watching Erebus's schemes fail never gets old." Naruto stretched casually. "Besides, it's nice to see death in good hands for a change. Thanatos was always too gloom-and-doom about everything." "Will you stay?" Persephone asked suddenly. "For the installation ceremony, at least." Something in her hopeful expression made Naruto pause. He'd been planning to slip away once the crisis was resolved, back to his peaceful existence between realms, away from divine politics and responsibilities. But looking at the three gods before him, Persephone with her unique blend of life and death, Hades with his solemn understanding of transition, even Hera with her shrewd political mind, he realized he'd enjoyed their company more than he'd enjoyed anything in centuries. "Sure," he said finally. "Wouldn't miss it. Besides, we still need to figure out what Erebus's bigger game is. Soul harvesting and corrupted amulets are just symptoms of something larger." "A problem for tomorrow," Hades suggested. "For now, I believe my wife has earned some rest after her ordeal." "Not just yet," Hera interjected smoothly. "Custom dictates a celebratory feast for new divine appointments. I've already arranged for one to be prepared." "A feast?" Naruto perked up. "Now you're speaking my language. Do gods still know how to party? Because back in my day, Dionysus's festivals were legendary." "Some traditions endure," Hera replied with the barest hint of amusement. "Though perhaps with more decorum than in earlier ages." "Decorum is overrated," Naruto declared. "But food is not. Lead the way, Your Majesty." As they walked toward the grand halls where the feast would be held, Naruto found himself surprisingly content. Maybe getting involved in divine affairs again wasn't such a bad thing after all. At the very least, it was never boring. And as the newly appointed death god walked beside him, already discussing ideas for improving soul guidance procedures, Naruto felt something he hadn't experienced in millennia: hope for the future of his greatest creation. The celebration feast exceeded even Naruto's expectations. Olympus pulled out all stops, tables groaning with ambrosia and nectar, nymphs dancing with impossible grace, music that seemed to come from the air itself. Despite recent tensions, most gods made an appearance, if only to assess the new power dynamics forming. Naruto lounged on a couch near Persephone's place of honor, enjoying his third cup of divine wine. Beside him, Hera maintained her regal composure while observing the gathered immortals with calculating eyes. "You know," Naruto said, leaning closer to her, "you're pretty good at this political chess game. Better than Zeus, though don't tell him I said that." Hera's lips curved slightly. "Millennia of practice. When one cannot rely on thunderbolts, one develops alternative skills." "Sneaky ones," Naruto agreed approvingly. "I like it." Across the hall, Persephone was deep in conversation with several minor death deities who would now fall under her authority. Despite her youth, she commanded respect naturally, her dual nature giving her insights that resonated with gods of both life and death domains. "She's a natural," Naruto observed. "Indeed," Hera agreed. "Though challenges remain. Not all will accept her authority easily. They'll learn." Naruto took another sip of wine. "Or they'll find out why messing with the death god is a bad idea." "Speaking of challenges," Hera said, her voice dropping to ensure privacy, "there have been reports from the mortal realm. Unusual deaths, souls departing in strange ways." Naruto's casual demeanor slipped slightly. "When? Where?" "Northern territories, beyond Olympus's usual influence. The reports are concerning. Bodies found bloodless, their souls seemingly extracted through unusual means." "Erebus again?" "Perhaps," Hera acknowledged. "Or perhaps new players entering the field. The cosmos has sensed the power vacuum left by Thanatos' unmaking." Naruto frowned. "We should investigate." "Once Persephone's installation is complete," Lord Nyx, a new voice interrupted. They looked up to find Apollo standing before them, his usual radiance dimmed by obvious discomfort. "Still just Naruto," he corrected automatically. Apollo inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Naruto, then. I wish to extend my apologies for today's events. My actions, though born of paternal pride, were inexcusable." Naruto studied him thoughtfully. The sun god's contrition seemed genuine, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine shame. Apology accepted, Naruto said finally. Though it's not really me you should be apologizing to. I have already spoken with Lady Persephone, Apollo assured him. And my son has been, most forthcoming about our error in judgment. Erebus preys on pride, Naruto said, not unkindly. It's his favorite tool. Don't beat yourself up too much, just be more careful about mysterious benefactors bearing gifts next time. Indeed. Apollo hesitated, then added, if I may offer any assistance in understanding the artifact or its corruption. That might actually be helpful, Naruto admitted. Your domain includes prophecy and truth. If you could examine what remains of the amulet, you might see patterns we'd miss. Relief crossed Apollo's features at this olive branch. I would be honored to assist. Good. We'll talk after tomorrow's ceremony. Naruto gestured with his wine cup in casual dismissal, which Apollo accepted with a respectful bow before withdrawing. That was generous of you, Hera observed once the sun god was out of earshot. Naruto shrugged. We need all the allies we can get if Erebus is making bigger moves. Besides, Apollo's pride took a massive hit today, that's punishment enough for someone like him. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden dimming of the hall's magical illumination. At the center of the room, Zeus rose from his throne, commanding attention. Gods of Olympus, he intoned, his voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. Tomorrow we shall formally install Lady Persephone as our new death god. But tonight, we celebrate not just this appointment, but our victory over forces that would disrupt cosmic order. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. And, Zeus continued, with a magnanimous gesture toward Naruto, we recognize the contribution of Lord Nyx, whose ancient wisdom guided us through this challenge. Naruto nearly choked on his wine. Recognition from Zeus? That was unexpected. Perhaps, Zeus went on, warming to his theme, it is time to consider expanding our council to include older wisdom. The challenges we face may require perspectives beyond our usual considerations. Now Naruto did choke, sputtering inelegantly while Hera patted his back with barely concealed amusement. Is he, offering me a job? Naruto whispered incredulously once he could breathe again. It appears so, Hera confirmed. Though in typical Zeus fashion, he's presenting it as his own brilliant idea rather than a necessary concession. But I'm retired. I don't want a permanent position. Perhaps you should have considered that before impressing the entire pantheon with your abilities, Hera suggested dryly. Before Naruto could formulate a response, Zeus raised his cup in a formal toast. To Lady Persephone, our new death god. And to Lord Nyx, whose return to our affairs brings renewed strength to Olympus. To Persephone and Nyx, the assembled gods echoed, raising their cups. Naruto managed a weak smile and an awkward wave as all eyes turned to him. Beside him, Hera's shoulders shook with silent laughter at his obvious discomfort. Not funny, he muttered. I find it quite amusing, she replied. The architect of death, undone by political maneuvering. I'm not undone, he protested. Just, strategically retreating to reassess. Of course, she agreed with mock seriousness. A perfectly dignified response. Across the hall, Persephone caught his eye and raised her cup with a smile that was both grateful and mischievous, as if she too found humor in his predicament. Traitors, all of you, Naruto grumbled, but there was no real heat in it. Despite his protests, a part of him, a part he'd thought long dormant, found the prospect of involvement strangely appealing. The feast continued late into the night, with Naruto eventually relaxing into the role of honored guest. He shared stories of the early cosmos with younger gods, demonstrated reality-bending tricks that delighted nymphs, and even engaged in a surprisingly thoughtful philosophical debate with Athena about the nature of soul essence. By the time the celebration finally wound down, he found himself actually looking forward to tomorrow's ceremony, though he still intended to firmly decline any permanent position Zeus might offer. As the divine guests began to depart, Persephone approached him, her new authority sitting comfortably on her shoulders. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. Don't mention it, he replied with a grin. Seriously, don't. I have a reputation as an uninvolved primordial to maintain. She laughed, a sound like spring water over stones. Too late for that, I think. You're officially involved now. So it seems, he sighed dramatically. Next thing you know, they'll be building temples to me again. Such a hassle. Did they really? Build temples to you? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. A few. Nothing fancy like Zeus gets. More like, special groves, crossroad shrines. Places between places, which is fitting. He stretched lazily. Mortals understood better than gods, sometimes. Death isn't just an ending but a threshold. A perspective I hope to maintain in my new role, Persephone said thoughtfully. You will, Naruto assured her. It's in your nature, the balance, the duality. That's why you're perfect for this. She smiled, pleased by his confidence. Will you really stay? Help me navigate these early challenges. For a while, he hedged. Though I'm drawing the line at any official position Zeus tries to foist on me. Fair enough. She glanced around the emptying hall. I should find Hades. Tomorrow will be significant. That's one word for it. Naruto gave her a casual salute. Get some rest, Death God. Big day ahead. After she departed, Naruto found himself alone in the vast hall, save for a few nymphs clearing away the remains of the feast. The quiet after so much divine energy felt almost physical, a palpable absence. He wandered to a balcony overlooking the mortal world far below. Stars wheeled overhead, the same stars he'd watched form from cosmic dust eons ago. From this height, the problems of gods and mortals seemed so small, yet here he was, entangled in them again. Contemplating escape. Hera's voice came from behind him. He didn't turn. Just enjoying the view. It's been a while since I spent time on Olympus. She joined him at the balcony, her presence regal yet somehow more relaxed than earlier. And your verdict? Still too shiny, he replied with a faint smile. But not as unbearable as I remembered. High praise indeed, she observed dryly. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the distant lights of mortal fires far below. You know, Naruto said finally, this doesn't end with Persephone's installation. Erebus is still out there, still planning. Today was just a skirmish. I'm aware, Hera replied solemnly. My sources report increasing disturbances at the boundaries between realms. Strange sightings in forgotten places. The soul harvesting continues, Naruto concluded grimly. He's found new methods, new allies. After the ceremony, we should discuss next steps, Hera suggested. Perhaps a more dedicated investigation. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Are you recruiting me, Lady Hera? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Would that be so objectionable? Depends on the company, he replied, surprising himself with his honesty. Some gods I can only tolerate in small doses. And others, she prompted. Naruto turned to face her fully, studying the Queen of Olympus with new consideration. In the starlight, she seemed less the untouchable royal and more a complex being with depths he'd only begun to perceive. Others, he said slowly, might be worth getting to know better. Something shifted in her expression, a subtle warmth that few ever glimpsed behind her queenly facade. How fortunate, then, that cosmic crises often create unexpected alliances. Very fortunate, he agreed with a grin. Almost makes the whole apocalypse thing worthwhile. She laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her regal features. Almost, but not quite. Get some rest, Naruto. Tomorrow will indeed be significant. Yes, ma'am, he replied with a mock salute. Whatever Her Majesty commands. With a final amused glance, Hera departed, leaving Naruto alone with the stars and his thoughts. Despite his protests about involvement, despite his long-held commitment to retirement, he found himself looking forward to whatever came next. The cosmos had gotten interesting again. And interesting, he decided, was definitely an improvement over eternal boredom. Dawn found Naruto not in his assigned guest quarters but atop Mount Olympus's highest peak, legs dangling over a precipice as he watched Apollo's chariot begin its daily journey across the sky. He'd always appreciated the technical artistry of the sun's path, one of the better systems the younger gods had implemented. Dramatic spot for morning meditation, came a voice behind him. Naruto glanced over his shoulder to find Persephone approaching, already dressed in formal attire for her installation ceremony. Her gown blended underworld black with vibrant green embroidery, and her hair was adorned with both night-blooming flowers and precious gems. "Nice outfit," he commented as she settled beside him on the cliff edge. "Very on-brand with the whole life-death duality thing." "Hades helped design it," she admitted with a smile. "He's surprisingly thoughtful about symbolic aesthetics. The Lord of the Dead has fashion sense." "Who knew?" Naruto grinned. "Nervous about today?" "Terrified," she confessed. "But also, ready, I think. It feels right, somehow." "It is right," he assured her. "I've known a lot of death gods over the eons. None had your particular qualifications." "You mean existing between realms?" "That, and your compassion. Your understanding of both sides of the transition." Naruto gestured toward the rising sun. "Death gods tend to get fixated on endings. You see the continuations." Persephone studied him curiously. "May I ask you something personal?" "Shoot." "Why did you create death?" "The true reason." Naruto's casual expression faltered slightly. It was a question few had ever dared ask him directly. "Because eternity is too heavy a burden," he said finally, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I watched the first conscious being struggle with endless existence, no change, no growth, no transformation. Just, being, forever." He gazed out over the world below. "Death creates meaning. Finite existence forces choice, growth, connection. It creates stories instead of endless stasis. You gave meaning by creating endings," Persephone summarized thoughtfully. "Transitions," he corrected gently. "Not endings. That's what Erebus never understood. He sees death as termination. I designed it as transformation. The soul recycling we saw with the mother and child," she realized. "Exactly." Naruto nodded. "The great cycle. Energy transforming, continuing, evolving." He turned to her with unusual seriousness. "That's what you're protecting now, Persephone. Not just the journey to judgment, but the entire cycle of cosmic renewal." The weight of this responsibility showed in her expression, but she didn't shrink from it. "I won't fail," she promised. "I know you won't." He stood, offering her a hand up. "Come on. Let's get you installed before Zeus decides to make an even bigger production out of this." They made their way down from the peak toward the grand ceremonial amphitheater where the installation would take place. Already, gods and minor deities were gathering, a far larger assembly than the previous day's test. "Quite the turnout," Naruto observed as they approached. "Word travels fast in divine circles." "Everyone loves a good succession drama," Persephone replied with surprising wryness. "Especially when it involves one of the fundamental cosmic powers." "Cynical already?" "You'll make an excellent death god," Naruto laughed. As they reached the amphitheater entrance, Hades appeared, resplendent in formal regalia rarely seen outside the underworld. His crown of twisted black metal gleamed with embedded souls, not trapped, but willingly serving as adornment for their lord. "My queen," he greeted Persephone with genuine warmth. "You look magnificent." "As do you, my lord," she replied, accepting his offered arm. Hades nodded to Naruto. "The ceremony is prepared. Zeus has, predictably, expanded its scope considerably. Of course he has, Naruto sighed. Let me guess, added a bunch of speeches, extra ritual elements, probably some dramatic lighting effects. All that and a 12-nymph choreographed dance sequence, Hades confirmed dryly. Fantastic. Naruto rolled his eyes. Well, let's get this over with. The sooner Persephone's officially installed, the sooner we can get to the real work. They entered the amphitheater together, immediately becoming the focus of hundreds of immortal eyes. Zeus and Hera already occupied their ceremonial thrones on a central dais, with other major gods arranged in hierarchical seating around them. A herald announced their arrival with excessive formality: Lord Hades, ruler of the underworld. Lady Persephone, queen of the underworld and candidate for the sacred office of death god. Lord Nyx, primordial architect of death. Just Naruto, he muttered under his breath as they proceeded down the central aisle. Hera caught his eye as they approached, a hint of amusement in her otherwise composed expression. She wore her full regalia as Queen of Olympus, peacock crown, star-spangled robes, and the legendary girdle that enhanced her already considerable presence. Zeus rose as they reached the dais, his thunderbolt staff crackling with barely contained power. We gather, he boomed unnecessarily loudly, to witness a sacred transition of cosmic authority. What followed was exactly the overly elaborate ceremony Naruto had feared: long invocations of ancient powers, ritualized questioning of the candidate, symbolic exchanges of divine energy. Zeus clearly reveled in his role as master of ceremonies, stretching each element to its maximum dramatic potential. Throughout it all, Persephone maintained perfect composure, answering the ritual questions with clear conviction and genuine insight. Naruto found himself increasingly impressed with her poise, especially when Zeus deliberately posed complex theological questions clearly intended to trip her up. And how, Zeus asked with barely concealed skepticism, does one so connected to life's renewal propose to maintain the necessary detachment required for death's administration? It is precisely because I understand life that I can properly honor death, Persephone replied without hesitation. The two are not opposites but companions in the great cycle. One gives meaning to the other. Naruto couldn't have answered better himself. He exchanged a satisfied glance with Hades, whose subtle pride in his wife was evident beneath his stoic exterior. Finally, after what felt like eons, they reached the actual installation. Zeus held aloft a crystalline orb that pulsed with dark energy, the concentrated essence of the death god's office. This authority passed from the primordial Nyx to Thanatos, Zeus intoned. Now, with Thanatos unmade and Lord Nyx's blessing, it passes to you, Persephone. Do you accept this burden and honor? I do, Persephone replied clearly. Zeus extended the orb toward her. Then take this power and become death, guide of souls, arbiter of transition. As Persephone reached for the orb, Naruto tensed slightly. This was the moment of true vulnerability, when her divine essence would merge with the concentrated power of the death god office. If Erebus had planted any corruption, any trap, it would manifest now. Her fingers touched the crystal surface, which began to glow with merged light, darkness shot through with vibrant green. The orb's surface rippled like liquid, then suddenly shattered, releasing its energy in a controlled explosion that engulfed Persephone completely. For a heart-stopping moment, she disappeared within the swirling energies. Then the power began to stabilize, absorbing into her divine form rather than surrounding it. When the light faded, Persephone stood transformed, not physically, but in presence. An aura of authority surrounded her, ancient and powerful yet tempered by her inherent vitality. It is done, Zeus declared, sounding both impressed and slightly disappointed that nothing had gone wrong. Behold the death god Persephone, guide of souls. The assembled immortals erupted in formal acclamation, though Naruto didn't miss the calculating expressions on several faces. Not everyone was pleased with this development, particularly those who had hoped to claim the position for themselves or their offspring. Naruto moved forward to congratulate her, but before he could reach Persephone, the entire amphitheater shuddered violently. Cracks appeared in the marble floor, and the air itself seemed to ripple like disturbed water. What, Zeus began, but his question was cut short as reality tore open at the center of the amphitheater. Unlike Naruto's controlled tears between realms, this was a violent, jagged rupture. Through it poured darkness, not mere absence of light, but active, hungry shadow that moved with purpose. Within seconds, the darkness had formed into humanoid shapes with eyes that burned like inverted stars. Shadow servitors, Naruto identified them immediately, dropping his casual demeanor entirely. Erebus is crashing the party. The shadow creatures moved with unnatural speed, bypassing lesser gods to head directly toward the central dais, toward Persephone. Naruto reacted instantly, golden energy flaring around his hands as he intercepted the nearest shadow. His power tore through it like sunlight through mist, but two more immediately took its place. All around the amphitheater, gods scrambled to defend themselves. Zeus hurled thunderbolts that momentarily dispersed the shadows but didn't destroy them. Ares and Athena fought back to back, their divine weapons proving moderately effective against the invaders. Hades had immediately moved to Persephone's side, his own power, control over all things beneath the earth, creating barriers of solid obsidian that the shadows struggled to penetrate. Thereafter Persephone, Naruto called to him as he dispatched another shadow creature. Or more specifically, the death god power she just received. I noticed, Hades replied grimly, reinforcing his barriers as shadows clawed at them with increasing frenzy. Persephone herself was not idle. Though newly installed and still adjusting to her expanded powers, she focused her energy into a sphere of green-gold light that repelled shadows that came too close. How did they breach Olympus? Hera demanded, her own power, command over the very air of the sacred mountain, creating whirlwinds that scattered the lighter shadow forms. The moment of transfer, Naruto realized, smashing through three more shadows with a concentrated blast. When the death god power was exposed during transition, it created a momentary weakness in reality's fabric. Erebus was waiting for this opportunity, Hades concluded, his expression darkening further. More shadows poured through the rift, which was widening despite Zeus's efforts to force it closed with raw power. The situation was rapidly deteriorating from skirmish to full-scale battle. "We need to close that rift," Naruto shouted over the chaos. "How?" Zeus bellowed back, frustrated that his considerable power seemed ineffective against the tear. "Persephone," Naruto called. "It's your power they used to open it, your power can seal it." She looked uncertain for only a moment before determination hardened her features. "Tell me how." "Feel the boundaries," he instructed, fighting his way closer to her. "Death exists at the threshold, you control that threshold now." Understanding dawned in her eyes. Stepping forward to the edge of Hades' protective barrier, Persephone extended her hands toward the rift. Green gold energy, the perfect blend of life and death, flowed from her fingertips like liquid light. "Boundaries between realms, hear me," she commanded, her voice resonating with her new authority. "I am death, arbiter of transition. You will not be forced. You will not be torn. Resume your proper form." The rift shuddered, its edges beginning to curl inward as her power influenced the very fabric of reality. The shadow creatures redoubled their efforts, seemingly aware that their access point was closing. "Keep going," Naruto encouraged, positioning himself directly between the shadows and Persephone. "You've got this." She poured more power into her command, her hair rising in an unseen wind as she exercised her new abilities for the first time. The rift contracted further, shadow creatures howling in rage as they were cut off mid-emergence. Just as victory seemed within reach, a final shadow, larger and more substantial than the others, hurled itself directly at Persephone with impossible speed. Naruto moved to intercept but realized he wouldn't reach it in time. "Persephone!" Hades shouted in warning. But the new death god didn't flinch. Without breaking her concentration on the rift, she raised her free hand toward the attacking shadow. "I reject you," she stated simply. The shadow creature slammed into an invisible barrier inches from her outstretched hand. It writhed there, trapped between her power and the closing rift, unable to advance or retreat. With a final surge of energy, Persephone sealed the rift completely. The trapped shadow creature compressed, condensed, and then imploded with a sound like reality itself sighing in relief. Silence fell across the amphitheater. The remaining shadow creatures, cut off from their source, dissolved into harmless wisps of darkness that quickly faded away. Persephone lowered her hands, looking almost surprised at what she had accomplished. "Well," Naruto said into the stunned quiet, "that was one hell of a first day on the job." Nervous laughter rippled through the assembly, tension gradually dissipating as gods realized the immediate danger had passed. Zeus, never one to be upstaged for long, stepped forward. "A test," he declared confidently, as if the attack had been planned all along. "A final trial to confirm Lady Persephone's worthiness, which she has clearly demonstrated." Naruto caught Hera's eye across the dais, both of them sharing a moment of exasperated amusement at Zeus's transparent attempt to save face. "Not a test," Naruto corrected, loud enough for all to hear. "An attack. Erebus isn't giving up, he's escalating." "Impossible," Zeus blustered. "No force could directly attack Olympus without inside help." Naruto finished pointedly. "Like, say, corrupted artifacts smuggled in by unwitting gods. Or perhaps." He glanced significantly toward several suspiciously enscathed minor deities at the amphitheater's edge, collaborators already in place. Murmurs of concern spread through the assembly as gods began looking at their neighbors with new suspicion. Persephone stepped forward, her new authority evident in how the crowd quieted to hear her. "This attack confirms what we already suspected. Erebus seeks to disrupt the proper flow of souls, and now he's directly targeted the office of Death God. Which means he's getting desperate," Hades added. "Our actions have disrupted his original plans. Or," Hera suggested thoughtfully, "this is merely one element of a more complex strategy. A distraction, perhaps, from his true objective. Either way," Naruto concluded, "we need to take the fight to him instead of just reacting. Find out what he's really after, who he's working with in the physical realms." Zeus, seeing control of the situation slipping from his grasp, raised his thunderbolt. "I declare this ceremony complete. Lady Persephone is confirmed as Death God, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The council will convene immediately to address this incursion." As gods began to file out of the damaged amphitheater, many still casting wary glances at their fellows, Naruto, Persephone, Hades, and Hera formed a tight circle. "That was no random attack," Hera said quietly. "The timing was too perfect. Someone informed Erebus exactly when the transfer of power would occur." "Someone with access to the ceremony details," Hades agreed grimly. "We need to identify Erebus's agents," Persephone said, her earlier exhaustion replaced by focused determination. "Both on Olympus and elsewhere. And we need to figure out what he's really after," Naruto added. "Soul harvesting, attacking the Death God office, these are means to an end, not the objective itself." "The council meeting will be useless," Hera predicted. "Too many potential informants, too much posturing." "Then we work separately," Naruto decided. Quietly. "Agreed," Hades nodded. "I'll examine the boundaries of Tartarus. If Erebus is active, the Titan prison may be affected. I'll use my new position to track soul disruptions," Persephone offered. "Now that I hold the office formally, I can sense deviations in the death process." "And I," Hera said with cool determination, "will watch Olympus itself. My servants are everywhere and largely ignored by other gods." "Great," Naruto said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I guess that leaves me the fun job of poking around in places Primordials hang out. See if I can rattle Erebus's cage directly. Is that wise?" Persephone asked, concern evident. "Confronting him alone?" "Probably not," Naruto admitted cheerfully. "But being wise was never really my strong suit." Hades frowned. "We should coordinate our investigations. Meet regularly to share findings." "My garden in the underworld," Persephone suggested. It exists at the boundary between realms, easier for all of us to reach without notice. Perfect, Naruto agreed. 3 days from now. That gives us time for initial reconnaissance. They all nodded in agreement just as Zeus's impatient voice boomed across the amphitheater. The council awaits. Duty calls, Hera sighed, smoothing her already immaculate robes. Remember, discretion is essential. We don't know who might be compromised. With that warning, they separated, each moving to their respective responsibilities, Hera and Persephone toward the council meeting, Hades back to the underworld, and Naruto. Naruto lingered after the others had gone, studying the spot where the rift had opened. Faint traces of corrupted energy still lingered, not enough to be dangerous, but sufficient for tracking. "All right, Erebus," he murmured, gathering the energy traces with careful precision. "Let's see what you've really been up to while I was retired." With the energy sample secured in a small pocket of altered reality, a trick few beings besides himself could manage, Naruto tore open his own path between realms and stepped through. The tear sealed seamlessly behind him, leaving no trace of his departure. The hunt was on. And this time, Naruto wasn't playing defense. Chapter 3, The Price of Immortality. Primordial darkness wasn't just absence of light, it was older than light, deeper than shadow. Naruto drifted through it with practiced ease, following traces of corrupted energy like breadcrumbs through a forest. The trail led him through forgotten corners of existence, places that predated the ordered cosmos. "You've been busy, haven't you?" Naruto muttered as he examined a patch of reality that had been worn thin, like fabric rubbed too often in the same spot. Sloppy work, though. Leaving traces everywhere. 3 days of tracking had revealed dozens of similar weak points, potential doorways between realms that showed signs of tampering. None had been fully breached yet, but the pattern was clear. Erebus was testing boundaries, searching for vulnerabilities. Naruto sealed this particular weak spot with a casual gesture, golden energy reinforcing reality's fabric. He'd repaired 17 similar points already, but it felt like bailing a sinking ship with a teacup. Time to check in with the others, he decided, tearing open a path to Persephone's underworld garden. Unlike his usual rough-edged portals, he took extra care with this one, creating a clean doorway that wouldn't disrupt the garden's unique energy. Persephone had enough to deal with without him damaging her sanctuary. He stepped through into a landscape that shouldn't have existed, a garden blooming with impossible vitality in the heart of the underworld. Black roses with petals like starless night grew alongside vibrant spring flowers. Trees bearing both fruit and crystallized solescence stretched their branches toward a ceiling that somehow captured the light of both moon and sun. Impressive redecorating, Naruto called out, spotting Persephone tending to a cluster of spectral lilies that seemed to phase between solid and transparent. "The place really pops now." Persephone looked up with a smile that showed genuine pleasure at his arrival. "Naruto. You're early." "Am I?" Time gets fuzzy between realms. He strolled over, examining her work with interest. "Soul lilies? Haven't seen those cultivated successfully in, well, ever. They respond to death energy balanced with life essence," she explained, gently touching a translucent petal that solidified at her contact. "I'm hoping they'll help track soul disruptions, they're sensitive to irregularities in the death process." "Smart," Naruto nodded appreciatively. "Using natural systems as monitoring tools. Very old school approach." "I had a good teacher," she replied with a meaningful look. Before he could respond, reality rippled nearby as Hades emerged from the shadows. The Lord of the Underworld looked grimmer than usual, which was saying something. "You're both here," he observed. "Good. We shouldn't have to wait long for Hera." "That bad, huh?" Naruto asked, reading the tension in Hades' posture. "Worse than we anticipated," Hades confirmed, moving to stand beside his wife. "Tartarus is unstable." Persephone looked up sharply. "The Titans? Restless. Especially Cronus. The barriers containing him have weakened significantly." Naruto frowned. Not a coincidence, I'm guessing. Definitely not, came Hera's voice as she materialized in the garden, her arrival marked by the scent of mountain air and peacock feathers. Olympus has been compromised as well. Unlike her usual regal appearance, the Queen of Olympus looked slightly disheveled. A small cut on her forearm leaked golden ichor, and her normally immaculate hair showed signs of hasty arrangement. You're injured, Persephone observed with concern. A disagreement with my husband, Hera replied dryly. He didn't appreciate my suggestion that Olympus might harbor traitors. Zeus being stubborn. Shocking, Naruto drawled. What happened? Hera accepted a healing leaf Persephone offered, pressing it to her wound. Several minor gods have disappeared from Olympus without explanation. Zeus claims they've simply gone to the mortal realm on various errands, but my sources indicate otherwise. They've been recruited, Hades guessed. Or coerced, Hera agreed. Either way, information about divine movements is clearly flowing to our enemies. That tracks with what I've found, Naruto said, creating a small model of the cosmos with golden light between his palms. Weak points forming between realms, particularly around sites of significant divine power. He expanded the model, highlighting dozens of flickering points. Temples, sacred groves, crossroads, all showing signs of attempted breaching. My soul monitoring shows similar patterns, Persephone added. Deaths near these weak points result in souls that never reach judgment. They simply vanish en route. So we've got Erebus poking holes between realms, Cronus getting restless in Tartarus, and missing gods who may be working with both of them. Naruto dismissed his cosmic model with a wave. Plus continuing soul harvesting. Anyone else feel like we're seeing puzzle pieces from different boxes? There must be a connection, Hades insisted. A unified strategy. I believe I've identified it, Hera said, her wound already healing under Persephone's treatment. The Olympian archives contain ancient prophecies, texts so old even Zeus rarely consults them. One speaks of death's power harnessed to unmake creation's locks. That sounds cheerful, Naruto muttered. It describes how the fundamental forces that maintain cosmic order, the locks holding reality in its current form, can be dissolved using concentrated death energy. Hera's expression was grave. With sufficient power, one could essentially reset creation to its primordial state. Erebus's ultimate goal, Persephone realized. Not just harvesting souls for power, but specifically to unmake the cosmos itself. And return everything to formless chaos, Naruto finished, uncharacteristically serious. Where he'd have the advantage over more structured deities. But why involve Cronus? Hades questioned. The Titan seeks dominion, not dissolution. Because Erebus needs someone with physical form to complete the work, Naruto explained. He's bound to the primordial darkness, limited in how directly he can affect the material cosmos. Cronus provides hands to do what Erebus cannot. And Cronus gets. Persephone prompted. Freedom from Tartarus initially, Hera surmised. And perhaps Erebus has promised him dominion over whatever new reality forms after the reset. A promise Erebus has no intention of keeping, Naruto added grimly. Once the cosmos is reduced to primal chaos, physical forms like Cronus's would dissolve along with everything else. A heavy silence fell over the garden as they contemplated the enormity of the threat. So how do we stop it? Persephone finally asked. We need to know exactly where and when they'll make their move, Hades said. If they've been harvesting souls for this purpose, they must have a specific focal point for channeling that energy. And we need to identify which gods have been turned, Hera added. Particularly any with access to Tartarus or the soul pathways. Naruto paced the garden path, uncharacteristically thoughtful. There's another problem, he said finally. The more souls they harvest, the thinner the boundaries between realms become. Death energy normally reinforces cosmic structure, it's part of how I designed the system. Remove enough of it. And reality itself begins to fray, Persephone concluded, understanding lighting her eyes. That's why the weak points are forming even without direct tampering. Exactly. The cosmos is losing its structural integrity. Like a tapestry with key threads removed. How long do we have? Hades asked bluntly. Naruto spread his hands in a gesture of uncertainty. Hard to say. Days, maybe. Hours if they've collected enough soul energy and are just waiting for the right moment. Then we need to, Hera began, but stopped abruptly as the garden shuddered around them. Flowers wilted instantly, soil cracked, and the artificial sunlight flickered like a dying flame. Persephone gasped, dropping to her knees as if struck. Something's wrong, she managed through clenched teeth. The underworld, it's being torn. Hades's expression darkened as he too felt the disturbance. Not just the underworld, he growled. Tartarus. The seals are breaking. The garden shook more violently, reality itself seeming to ripple around them. From beyond the garden walls came sounds no mortal could hear, the cosmic equivalent of tearing fabric, of locks shattering, of foundations crumbling. It's starting, Naruto said, golden energy flaring around him instinctively. They're making their move now. Where? Hera demanded, maintaining her composure despite the chaos erupting around them. Before anyone could answer, a tidal wave of darkness smashed through the garden wall. Not simple absence of light, but active, hungry void that consumed everything it touched. Flowers, trees, and soil vanished on contact, leaving nothingness in their wake. Naruto reacted instantly, throwing up a barrier of golden energy that temporarily halted the darkness's advance. Get behind me. Hades pulled Persephone to her feet, both gods summoning their own powers, Hades's control over the underworld manifesting as obsidian armor while Persephone's death god energy created a green-gold nimbus around her. Hera's power, command over air and sovereignty, formed a swirling shield of her own. We need to reach Olympus, she shouted over the roar of reality tearing. Zeus must be warned. The pathways between realms are collapsing, Hades countered. Conventional travel will be impossible. Naruto grimaced as his barrier cracked under the relentless assault of primordial darkness. I can still tear through, he grunted with effort. But not for long, reality's becoming too unstable. Then we split up, Persephone decided, her voice carrying unexpected authority. Hades secures the underworld, Hera returns to Olympus, and I track the source of this attack through the death currents. Not alone, you don't, Naruto objected. This has Erebus written all over it. You're not facing him without backup. I'm the death god now, she reminded him. This is my responsibility. And I'm the guy who wrote the rulebook on death, he countered. So technically, you're still the intern. Despite the dire situation, Persephone's lips quirked upward. Fine. We go together. I dislike dividing our forces, Hades growled, but time is against us. He turned to his wife, concern evident beneath his stern facade. Be careful. Erebus will target you specifically now that you hold the death god office. I know, she assured him, briefly touching his face in a gesture of affection. Secure our realm, my love. I'll return when this is finished. Naruto's barrier shattered with a sound like breaking stars, forcing him to immediately create another further back. Heartwarming, but we need to move. Now. Hera nodded sharply. Agreed. Naruto, can you open paths for each of us? Sure, just give me a second to juggle holding back primordial chaos while performing precision reality surgery, he replied sarcastically, sweat beading on his forehead as he maintained the failing barrier. But seriously, yes, stand ready. Gathering his strength, Naruto tore open 3 separate portals simultaneously, a feat that would have been impossible for any lesser deity. Each shimmered with golden light, temporarily stabilized against the collapsing reality around them. Hades, that one leads to your throne room. Hera, Olympus Council Chamber. Persephone and I will take the third to track this energy to its source. May the fates favor us all, Hera said formally, then strode without hesitation through her designated portal. Hades paused only long enough to share a meaningful look with Persephone before entering his own pathway. Ready for another adventure, Flower Queen? Naruto asked, his barrier now barely containing the encroaching void. Persephone straightened, her dual nature, life and death together, manifesting as a swirling aura around her. Lead the way, Naruto. With a final surge of power that temporarily pushed back the darkness, Naruto grabbed Persephone's hand and pulled her through the third portal just as his barrier collapsed completely. The garden, Persephone's sanctuary in the underworld, vanished into primordial darkness behind them. They emerged into chaos. Not metaphorical chaos, actual, primordial chaos, the state of existence before order was imposed on the cosmos. Around them swirled fragments of reality, pieces of the mortal world, shards of Olympus, sections of the underworld, all colliding and merging in impossible ways. Well, this is bad, Naruto observed, maintaining his grip on Persephone's hand as they floated in the chaotic void. Reality's already fragmenting. Persephone stared in horror at the destruction. How is this possible? Even Erebus shouldn't have this kind of power. He doesn't, Naruto confirmed grimly. This is what happens when you remove enough death energy from the cosmic system. The boundaries between realms dissolve. Without death to define transitions, everything blurs together. A fragment of mortal village drifted past them, houses and streets with mortals frozen in positions of terror, unaware that their reality was literally breaking apart around them. Beyond it, a piece of Olympus's gardens collided with a section of the underworld's fields of punishment, creating an impossible hybrid landscape. We need to find the focal point, Persephone said, focusing despite the overwhelming spectacle. Where they're channeling the harvested soul energy. Naruto closed his eyes, extending his senses through the chaos. As the original architect of death, he had a unique connection to its energy, could track it even through this cosmic dissolution. There, he said finally, pointing toward what appeared to be a swirling vortex at the heart of the chaos. All the death energy is being drawn to that point. Can we reach it? Not directly. The chaos is too unstable for conventional movement. Naruto frowned in concentration. But I might be able to fold space around us, bring the destination closer. Do it, Persephone encouraged. I'll help stabilize our immediate surroundings. As Naruto began the complex process of manipulating space itself, Persephone extended her death god powers outward, creating a bubble of relative order around them. Within this protected space, the laws of reality temporarily reasserted themselves, providing a stable platform for Naruto's more ambitious workings. Nice job, he commented, genuinely impressed by her intuitive grasp of cosmic principles. You're getting the hang of this death god thing. Necessity is an excellent teacher, she replied, maintaining her concentration as fragments of broken reality bounced harmlessly off her protective bubble. With careful precision, Naruto began folding the chaotic space between them and their target. Rather than traveling through the chaos, he brought their destination to them, an advanced technique few beings besides primordials could manage. Space compressed, twisted, and finally snapped into a new configuration. The distant vortex now loomed directly before them, its scale and power far more apparent at close range. Oh, Persephone breathed, momentarily stunned by what they faced. The vortex was enormous, a swirling maelstrom of darkness shot through with screaming streaks of light that Naruto recognized as corrupted soul energy. At its center, a figure of impossible proportions was taking shape, drawing power from the vortex to reform a body that had been imprisoned for eons. Cronus, Naruto identified the half-formed titan. Erebus is using the soul energy to rebuild his physical form outside Tartarus. Surrounding the vortex were dozens of lesser figures, the missing gods, Naruto realized, all linked to the central power flow by chains of dark energy. They weren't willing participants but batteries, their divine essence being drained to further fuel Cronus's restoration. And directing it all, barely visible as a deeper shadow within shadows, was a presence Naruto recognized immediately. "Erebus," he muttered. "Should have known you'd be micromanaging. What's the plan?" Persephone asked, studying the horrific tableau with remarkable composure. "We need to disrupt the energy flow," Naruto replied. "Cut off Cronus's reformation and free those gods if possible. But mostly, we need to reclaim the harvested soul energy before it's completely corrupted." "And Erebus?" Naruto's expression hardened. "Leave him to me. We have unfinished business." "I'm the death god now," Persephone reminded him. "This is as much my fight as yours." He glanced at her, seeing not just the goddess of spring but the queen of the underworld, the newly appointed death deity who had faced down shadow servitors without flinching. "Fair point," he conceded. "New plan, we both kick their primordial butts, save reality, and hopefully make it back in time for ambrosia dessert on Olympus. Sound good?" Despite the dire circumstances, Persephone smiled. "Sounds perfect." Their moment of accord was interrupted as the vortex pulsed violently, reality shuddering around them. Cronus's form grew more solid, features becoming distinct, cruel and ancient, radiating malevolence that had festered through millennia of imprisonment. "Time grows short, little gods," boomed a voice that seemed to come from the darkness itself, Erebus, addressing his captive divine batteries. "Surrender your essence willingly and perhaps you may serve in the new order." "That's our cue," Naruto said. "Ready?" Persephone nodded, gathering her power around her like a cloak of living energy. "Ready." Together, they dropped the protective bubble and launched themselves toward the vortex. Naruto led with a blast of golden energy that tore through the outer layers of darkness, creating a path for Persephone to follow. Their attack didn't go unnoticed. The vortex convulsed, spitting out tendrils of darkness that sought to entangle them. Naruto slashed through these with contemptuous ease, his power as the original death god giving him advantage over Erebus's corrupted versions. Persephone demonstrated why Zeus had been reluctant to grant her the death god office. Her dual nature allowed her to weave between attack and defense with fluid grace, her green-gold energy disrupting the darkness while simultaneously strengthening reality around them. They fought their way closer to the center, each covering the other's vulnerabilities in a display of coordination that belied their brief association. When darkness threatened to overwhelm Naruto's flank, Persephone was there with a shield of life energy. When corrupted souls were hurled at Persephone like spiritual shrapnel, Naruto deflected them with precise bursts of primordial power. "NYX," Erebus's voice resonated through the chaos when he finally noticed their advance. "How predictable. Always interfering with natural progression." "Natural progression?" Naruto shouted back, slicing through another tendril of darkness. "You're literally tearing apart the cosmos." "That's about as unnatural as it gets." "The cosmos was a mistake," Erebus replied. "Order is a temporary aberration. Chaos is the natural state of existence." "Save the philosophy lecture," Naruto retorted. "We both know this is just a cosmic temper tantrum because you didn't get your way eons ago." The darkness around them intensified, Erebus's rage manifesting as increased attacks. Persephone narrowly avoided being engulfed by a wave of shadow that would have corrupted her essence on contact. "Might not want to antagonize the primordial darkness while we're surrounded by it," she suggested, casting Naruto a pointed look. "Where's the fun in that?" he grinned, though he did redirect his focus to their advance rather than verbal sparring. They had nearly reached the center of the vortex when the half-formed Cronus finally noticed their approach. The Titan's massive hand, still partially translucent but gaining solidity with each moment, swung toward them with devastating force. "Move!" Naruto shouted, shoving Persephone aside as the giant hand passed through the space they'd occupied. Even without making direct contact, the proximity of so much concentrated malice sent ripples of distortion through reality around them. "We need to free the captive gods," Persephone called, indicating the ring of divine figures whose essence was being drained into the reformation process. Their power is accelerating Cronus's return. Naruto nodded, quickly assessing their options. You work on breaking those chains. I'll keep Big and Ugly occupied. Without waiting for confirmation, he surged forward directly toward Cronus, golden power blazing around him like a comet. Hey, Grandpa time, he shouted, drawing the Titan's attention. Remember me? The guy who existed before you were even a concept. Cronus's partially formed face contorted in rage, attention successfully diverted from Persephone as she moved toward the imprisoned gods. The Titan lashed out again, this time with both massive hands attempting to crush Naruto between them. Instead of dodging, Naruto met the attack head-on, his golden energy expanding to form a protective shell. Cronus's hands slammed into this barrier with force that would have shattered mountains, creating a shockwave that rippled through the chaotic void around them. Is that all you've got? Naruto taunted, though maintaining the barrier against such power was clearly straining him. A few eons in Tartarus and you've gone soft. While Naruto kept Cronus occupied, Persephone reached the first of the captive gods, a minor river deity whose form was already fading as his essence drained away. The dark chain connecting him to the central vortex pulsed with corrupted energy, resistant to her initial attempts to sever it. This isn't just Erebus's power, she realized, studying the chain more carefully. It's using the gods' own divine signatures against them, binding them with their unique energies. Understanding the problem, Persephone shifted her approach. Rather than attacking the chain directly, she placed her hands on the weakened god himself, channeling her death god power, not to harm but to temporarily suspend his divine essence, creating a momentary null state where the chain had nothing to grip. The dark binding writhed, searching for its connection, then dissolved when it couldn't re-establish its hold. The river god gasped as his essence returned to his control, his form solidifying. Thank you, he whispered weakly. Can you free yourself from this place? Persephone asked urgently. He nodded. I think so, now that the binding is gone. Then go, warn any gods you encounter about what's happening here. As the river god dissolved into his elemental form and slipped away through the chaos, Persephone moved to the next captive, repeating the process. One by one, she freed the imprisoned deities, each successful liberation further slowing the flow of power to Cronus's reformation. Meanwhile, Naruto was giving the Titan Lord a master class in primordial combat. Though physically smaller by orders of magnitude, Naruto's power as the original death entity allowed him to meet Cronus's raw strength with precision and cosmic authority. Golden energy formed weapons, shields, and constraints that continually frustrated the Titan's increasingly desperate attacks. Where Cronus relied on brute force, Naruto employed tactics developed over eons of existence, redirecting energy, exploiting weaknesses in his opponent's still-forming body, and occasionally just being downright irritating. You know what your problem is, Cronus? Naruto called as he darted around another crushing blow. You never adapted. Still using the same old tactics from before Zeus knocked you into Tartarus. The cosmos evolved, but you're stuck in the past. The Titan roared in frustration, his voice causing reality itself to shudder. Insolent speck. I am Cronus, devourer of gods, lord of time. Lord of Time who didn't see his own kid staging a coup, Naruto countered, striking the Titan's partially formed chest with a concentrated blast that temporarily disrupted his reformation. Not exactly great planning skills there. As Naruto continued his calculated offensive, he kept track of Persephone's progress. She had freed nearly half the captive gods, and Cronus's reformation was noticeably slowing as a result. But with each liberation, Erebus's rage intensified, the darkness around them becoming increasingly aggressive. Enough games, Erebus's voice resonated through the chaos. Cronus, take what you need directly. The Titan's eyes gleamed with malevolent understanding. Instead of continuing his ineffective attacks on Naruto, he plunged one massive hand directly into the vortex at the center of the maelstrom. When it emerged, it clutched a writhing mass of corrupted soul energy, thousands of harvested souls compressed into a single power source. Before either Naruto or Persephone could intervene, Cronus consumed this essence, absorbing it into his still-forming body. The effect was immediate and horrifying, his translucent form solidified rapidly, divine power radiating from him in palpable waves. "That's not good," Naruto muttered, reassessing their increasingly dire situation. "Persephone. Change of plans, we need to disrupt the vortex directly." She nodded in understanding, abandoning her systematic liberation of the remaining gods to join Naruto closer to the center of the chaos. Together, they faced the now nearly completed Titan and the dark presence of Erebus pulsing behind him. "Any bright ideas?" she asked, her green-gold aura flaring in response to the mounting threat. "Just one, and it's more desperate than bright," Naruto admitted. "We need to reclaim those souls before their energy fully integrates with Cronus. If we can extract them from his form, we can use that same energy to restore the boundaries between realms," Persephone finished, quickly grasping his logic. "But how do we extract them from a fully manifested Titan?" "I go in after them," Naruto said simply. "Directly into Cronus's essence." Persephone stared at him. "That's suicide, even for you." "Only mostly suicide," he corrected with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "And it's not like we have a lot of options here. Reality is literally falling apart around us." As if to emphasize his point, another massive section of the mortal world collapsed into the chaos, an entire mountain range crumbling into cosmic fragments before being absorbed into the growing maelstrom. "What do you need me to do?" Persephone asked, accepting the necessity of his plan despite her obvious concern. "Create a pathway for the souls once I free them," Naruto instructed. "A direct channel back to the normal death current. Your authority as Death God should let you re-establish that connection, even through this chaos." She nodded, determination hardening her delicate features. "And how do you plan to get inside Cronus in the first place?" Naruto's smile turned predatory. "The old-fashioned way. I'll make him eat me." "That's brilliant." "Insane." "Both?" he suggested. "Yeah, I know. But Cronus has a history of swallowing things he shouldn't. Might as well use that tendency against him." Before Persephone could raise further objections, Naruto surged forward directly toward Cronus, golden energy flaring around him so brightly that even the Titan was momentarily dazzled. "Hey, Time Lord!" Naruto shouted, deliberately making himself the most obvious target in the chaotic battlefield. "Bet you can't catch me." The taunt, simplistic as it was, struck directly at Cronus's pride. The Titan lunged forward with surprising speed for his massive size, hands outstretched to seize the irritant that had been thwarting him. Instead of dodging as he had before, Naruto allowed himself to be caught. Cronus's giant fist closed around him, squeezing with force that would have obliterated lesser beings. Through the gaps between massive fingers, Naruto caught a final glimpse of Persephone's worried face before Cronus lifted him toward his gargantuan mouth. All part of the plan, Naruto muttered to himself as darkness engulfed him. Being swallowed by a Titan was every bit as unpleasant as one might imagine. Cronus's interior wasn't physical in the conventional sense, more a swirling maelstrom of divine energy, corrupted souls, and ancient hatred, all compressed into a space that shouldn't have been able to contain it. But for Naruto, this chaotic interior was navigable. As the original architect of death, he could perceive the stolen soul energy distinct from Cronus's own essence, thousands of harvested souls, their individuality still faintly present despite the corruption attempting to homogenize them. "Found you," Naruto whispered, extending his awareness toward these captured souls. He met resistance immediately. Cronus's interior defenses, bolstered by Erebus's darkness, attacked Naruto's essence, attempting to absorb or corrupt him as they had the harvested souls. Naruto fought back, his golden energy creating a protective shell around himself while simultaneously reaching out to the nearest soul fragments. "Remember yourselves," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of the original death. "You don't belong here." The soul fragments stirred, recognition flickering through them. Naruto pushed harder, expanding his influence against the consuming darkness. You are not fuel. You are not raw material. You are individuals with journeys unfinished. More souls responded, their faint individual lights strengthening as Naruto's power reminded them of their true nature. But for every soul that awakened to his call, Cronus's defenses intensified, darkness closing in around Naruto's protective shell with crushing force. Gonna need a little help here, Flower Queen, Naruto grunted, feeling his protection beginning to buckle. Outside, Persephone had not been idle. While Naruto worked from within, she had positioned herself at the optimal point to create the soul pathway he'd requested. But watching Cronus consume her ally had sparked something unexpected within her, not just concern, but fierce determination. I am death, she reminded herself, the office's full power flowing through her with renewed purpose. I determine the boundaries, the transitions, the journeys. Green gold energy swirled around her as she extended her authority directly toward Cronus. Unlike Naruto's frontal assault, Persephone's approach was more subtle. She sought not to attack the Titan directly but to establish her rightful claim on the souls he had consumed. Those souls are under my protection, she declared, her voice carrying the full weight of her office. They walk my paths, answer to my judgment, follow my guidance. You have no claim upon them. The power of her declaration sent visible shockwaves through Cronus's form. Within, Naruto felt the Titan's hold on the soul energy momentarily weaken. That's my girl, he grinned, seizing the opportunity to intensify his own efforts. Golden light blazed from him, reaching deeper into Cronus's essence to contact more of the captured souls. Time to go home, everyone. The souls responded in growing numbers, their individual lights strengthening and converging around Naruto. But as they separated from Cronus's essence, the Titan became aware of what was happening inside him. No. Cronus's voice thundered, both outside and within his own form. They are mine. The interior space contracted violently, crushing inward toward Naruto and the souls gathering around him. At the same time, Erebus's darkness intensified, seeking to recorrupt the awakening souls before they could fully separate. Caught between these dual pressures, Naruto's protection began to fail. Pain lanced through him as portions of his essence directly contacted Cronus's corrupt power. Persephone, he called, his voice somehow carrying beyond the Titan's form. Now would be good. Outside, Persephone heard his call and acted with decisive power. Plunging both hands directly into the chaotic energy surrounding Cronus, she tore open a pathway straight into the Titan's interior, not a physical opening but a channel for soul energy to flow outward. Follow my call, she commanded the liberated souls. Return to your proper journey. The pathway blazed with green gold light, cutting through Erebus's darkness like a beacon through fog. Within Cronus, the awakened souls surged toward this exit, flowing around and through Naruto as they responded to the death god summons. For a moment, it seemed victory was at hand. Hundreds, then thousands of souls streamed from Cronus toward Persephone's pathway, each departure weakening the Titan's manifested form. Reality around them began to stabilize slightly as death energy returned to its proper channels. Then Erebus made his move. Enough, the primordial darkness roared, its presence condensing into something almost solid directly behind Persephone. This ends now. Before she could react, tendrils of pure darkness struck her from behind, wrapping around her form and disrupting her concentration. The soul pathway flickered, nearly collapsing as pain forced her to her knees. Your predecessor failed me, Erebus's voice slithered into her mind. But you will serve a greater purpose, Death God. Your office's power will fuel the final dissolution. Inside Cronus, Naruto felt the soul pathway faltering. Through his connection to the escaping souls, he glimpsed Persephone's predicament, saw Erebus's darkness attempting to corrupt not just her body but the very office she held. Oh hell no, Naruto snarled. Abandoning his careful extraction of the remaining souls, he gathered his power for a more direct approach. Sorry about the indigestion, Time Lord. Golden light exploded outward from Naruto's core, not a controlled release but a cataclysmic detonation of primordial power. The blast tore through Cronus's interior, forcibly separating the remaining souls from the Titan's essence and propelling them toward the weakening pathway. The explosion continued outward, rupturing Cronus's not-quite physical form from within. The Titan's agonized roar shook the foundations of reality as golden light burst from his eyes, mouth, and newly formed cracks across his body. Naruto rode the shockwave of his own power, shooting out of Cronus like a golden comet and streaking directly toward where Erebus held Persephone captive. "Get away from her," he growled, colliding with Erebus's shadowy form at speeds that would have annihilated normal matter. The impact sent both primordials tumbling through the chaotic void, temporarily freeing Persephone from Erebus's grasp. She gasped as the corrupting touch receded, quickly re-establishing the soul pathway to capture the remaining freed souls streaming from Cronus's disintegrating form. Naruto and Erebus separated, facing each other across a stretch of broken reality. For the first time, Erebus assumed a more defined shape, a towering figure of absolute darkness with eyes like inverted stars. "Always interfering," Erebus hissed, his voice reverberating through multiple dimensions. "Always preserving your flawed creation." "It's not flawed," Naruto countered, his own power blazing in defiance of the darkness. "It's exactly what it needs to be, a balance of order and chaos, life and death, preservation and transformation." "Balance is stagnation," Erebus spat. "The cosmos requires renewal." "Renewal, not destruction," Naruto corrected. "And certainly not your version of renewal, which is just, make everything formless darkness again so I can be in charge." Erebus attacked, darkness extending in countless spears toward Naruto, who countered with a shield of golden light. The collision of their powers sent ripples of distortion through the already unstable reality around them. "You know what your actual problem is?" Naruto called as he dodged another assault, countering with blasts of his own energy. "You're stuck in a binary mindset. Everything has to be either total chaos or rigid order for you. No appreciation for the beautiful complexity in between." "Complexity is illusion," Erebus replied, darkness sweeping outward in a wave that Naruto barely avoided. "All returns to simplicity eventually." Their battle intensified, primordial powers clashing in ways that threatened what remained of reality's integrity. Where their energies met, existence itself briefly ceased, replaced by states that had no name in any divine or mortal language. Meanwhile, Persephone continued her work, the soul pathway now stable and flowing strongly. As more souls returned to their proper journey, reality began slowly knitting itself back together. Fragments of the mortal world stopped disintegrating, sections of Olympus and the underworld ceased their chaotic collisions. Cronus, severely weakened by Naruto's internal explosion and the loss of his stolen soul power, struggled to maintain his manifestation. The Titan Lord's form flickered between solidity and transparency, his connection to the physical realm tenuous without the sustained power of harvested souls. Seeing the tide turning against them, Erebus changed tactics. Disengaging from direct confrontation with Naruto, the darkness surged toward the weakened Cronus instead. "No," the Titan bellowed, recognizing his former ally's intent. "We had an agreement." "Agreements change," Erebus replied coldly. "Your form still contains sufficient power for my purpose." Before Cronus could retreat, Erebus enveloped him completely, darkness flowing into every crack created by Naruto's explosion. The Titan's scream transcended normal sound, becoming a psychic wail that resonated through all realms simultaneously. "He's consuming Cronus," Naruto realized, racing toward the merged entities. "Using him as a vessel." Persephone, having secured the soul pathway, moved to join him. "What does that mean for us?" "Nothing good," Naruto replied grimly. "Erebus is normally bound to the primordial darkness, limited in how directly he can affect physical reality. But if he successfully merges with Cronus, he gains physical form," Persephone concluded, horror dawning. "Access to all realms." The merging process accelerated, Cronus's struggles weakening as Erebus asserted dominance over their combined form. The result was a monstrous hybrid, Cronus's titanic body now composed entirely of living shadow, with Erebus's inverted star eyes glaring from the distorted face. "I am become physical," the merged entity declared, its voice a discordant blend of Titan and Primordial. "All realms will know darkness." "That's definitely not good," Naruto muttered. "New plan, we separate them before the merger becomes permanent." "How?" Persephone demanded. Direct attacks barely phased either of them separately. Naruto's expression shifted into something ancient and terrible, a reminder that beneath his casual demeanor existed a being who had shaped the fundamental laws of existence. "We remind Erebus why he was bound to the darkness in the first place," he said, golden light intensifying around him. "And we use your unique position to do it." He turned to her, eyes blazing with primordial energy. "You exist at the boundary between life and death, order and chaos. Together, we can create a forced separation, me pushing Erebus out, you pulling Cronus away. That would leave Cronus free," Persephone pointed out. "Still a significant threat. Deal with one apocalypse at a time," Naruto suggested with a strained grin. "Besides, without the soul energy, he's weakened. Zeus and the others can handle him if necessary." The merged entity extended a massive hand toward them, darkness flowing outward like a tsunami. "Your schemes end here, Nyx. The age of light and order is finished." Yeah, darkness and destruction, heard it all before," Naruto replied, positioning himself protectively in front of Persephone. "Ready for this, Flower Queen?" She moved to stand beside him instead. "Ready." Together, they faced the oncoming darkness, their contrasting energies, Naruto's ancient golden power and Persephone's harmonized green-gold death essence, creating an unexpected synergy where they touched. "Remember what I taught you about soul shielding?" Naruto asked as the darkness approached. "We need the same concept, but applied to an entire entity." Persephone nodded in understanding, her hands moving in the patterns he had shown her during their training. Naruto mirrored her movements, their energies intertwining and expanding outward to meet the advancing shadow. When light and darkness collided, the result was neither victory nor defeat but a strange equilibrium, a suspended moment where opposing forces perfectly balanced. In this momentary stability, Naruto drove his awareness directly into the merged entity's core. There, he called to Persephone, mentally highlighting the boundary between Cronus and Erebus, still distinct despite their ongoing merger. "Can you feel it?" Through their connected powers, she sensed what he indicated, the Titan essence struggling against primordial darkness, two fundamental forces imperfectly joined. "I feel it," she confirmed, extending her unique perception as a deity of both life and death. "The junction point is unstable." "On my mark," Naruto instructed, gathering his power for a massive exertion. "I push, you pull. 3, 2, 1, now." Their combined attack struck with precision at the weakest point of the merger. Naruto's power slammed into Erebus's essence like a golden spear, forcing it away from Cronus's core. Simultaneously, Persephone reached for the Titan with her death god authority, commanding his divine essence to separate from the darkness as she would command a soul to follow its proper path. The merged entity convulsed, caught between opposing forces it couldn't resist. Cracks of golden light appeared across its shadow form, widening as Naruto and Persephone intensified their efforts. "It's working!" Persephone exclaimed, feeling Cronus's essence responding to her call. "Keep going." Naruto encouraged, though the strain of directly opposing Erebus showed in the sweat beading on his forehead. "Almost there." With a sound like reality itself tearing, the merger finally broke. Erebus's darkness was violently expelled from Cronus's form, sending both entities tumbling in opposite directions through the chaotic void. Cronus, now severely weakened and partially transparent, rolled to a stop against a floating fragment of Olympian architecture. The Titan Lord struggled to rise but couldn't maintain sufficient solidity, his essence beginning to dissipate without Erebus's power to sustain it. Erebus himself reformed some distance away, his darkness contracting into a dense, seething mass. Without a physical vessel, his ability to affect the material realms was once again limited, a restriction he was clearly aware of, given the psychic waves of rage emanating from his form. You have not won, Erebus's voice resonated, though noticeably weaker than before. This delay is temporary. Chaos always returns. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, positioning himself between the primordial darkness and his allies. But not today, and not your version of it. Persephone stepped forward to stand beside him, her death god authority fully manifested. Return to your boundaries, Erebus, she commanded, her voice carrying unexpected power. This realm is under my protection now. You overreach, new death, Erebus hissed. Your office grants you no authority over me. Maybe not alone, she agreed. But I don't stand alone. As if summoned by her words, reality rippled behind them. Hera stepped through a newly formed pathway, Zeus's thunderbolt clutched in her hand. Behind her came Hades, obsidian armor gleaming as he emerged from the shadows. We felt the balance shifting, Hera explained, moving to flank Persephone. The boundaries between realms are stabilizing. Olympus is secured, she continued. Zeus and the others are repairing the damage there, but he sent his weapon with me. She hefted the massive thunderbolt, which crackled with barely contained power. The underworld barriers are holding, Hades added, taking position beside his wife. Tartarus is sealed once more, though some inmates remain unaccounted for. His dark gaze fixed on the fading form of Cronus. Erebus assessed the new arrivals, his darkness contracting further as he recognized the shifting balance of power. This changes nothing, he insisted, though his retreat had already begun. The flaws in your ordered cosmos remain. Eventually, they will grow too great to contain. Maybe, Naruto agreed again. But when that time comes, we'll adapt and evolve, not destroy everything and start over. That's the difference between us, Erebus. I see creation as a work in progress. You just want to erase the whole canvas. The primordial darkness offered no reply, instead accelerating its retreat until it vanished entirely, slipping between the weakened boundaries back to the outer void where it was originally bound. With Erebus gone, they turned their attention to Cronus. The Titan Lord had managed to partially stabilize his form, though he remained translucent and clearly weakened. Your rebellion ends here, Father, Hades said coldly. Again. Cronus laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Does it? Look around you, children. Reality itself fractured at my touch. The cosmos you so proudly maintain proved fragile indeed. Because you cheated, Naruto pointed out. Soul stealing, primordial alliances, cosmic disruption, not exactly a fair fight. There are no fair fights in divinity, Cronus retorted. Only power and its application. His fading gaze fixed on Persephone. Remember that, new death. Your predecessors learned it too late. Before anyone could respond, Hera stepped forward and raised Zeus's thunderbolt. Enough talk. Back to Tartarus, Cronus. Divine lightning, concentrated to an intensity that could shatter mountains, erupted from the weapon, engulfing the weakened Titan. Cronus didn't even have time to scream before his form collapsed entirely, compressed by Zeus's power into an essence that could be contained and transported. When the lightning faded, only a small crystalline prison remained where Cronus had been, a temporary containment until he could be returned to his permanent cell in Tartarus. Hades retrieved the crystal, studying his imprisoned father with grim satisfaction. I will ensure his bonds are strengthened this time. Use soul essence in the reinforcement, Naruto suggested. Death energy naturally opposes cosmic disruption, it should help prevent another breakout. Hades nodded in acknowledgement of the advice. A wise suggestion. For a moment, all four stood in a gradually stabilizing void, the immediate danger past but the evidence of near catastrophe still surrounding them in the form of reality fragments slowly reknitting themselves. So, Naruto said finally, his casual demeanor returning. That was fun. Who's up for ambrosia drinks? I feel like we earned them. Despite everything, Persephone laughed, a sound of genuine relief and lingering tension. Only you would suggest a celebration in the middle of broken reality. Best place for it, he countered with a grin. Reminds us what we're celebrating, not being cosmic dust. Hera regarded him with that calculating gaze he'd come to appreciate. The crisis is not entirely resolved, she reminded them. Though Erebus and Cronus have been repelled, significant damage remains across all realms. The soul pathway is re-established, Persephone reported. Death transitions should return to normal functioning as the freed souls complete their journeys. Which means the cosmic fabric will gradually repair itself, Naruto added. Death energy naturally reinforces reality's structure, it's part of how the whole system works. Nevertheless, Hades said gravely, we should not assume the threat is permanently neutralized. Erebus will seek new methods, new allies. Probably, Naruto agreed. Primordials tend to be stubborn that way. But he'll need time to recover from this failure, and will be better prepared next time. Hera raised an elegant eyebrow. Does this mean you're abandoning retirement, Lord Nyx? Naruto winced at the formal title but considered her question seriously. For millennia, he had avoided involvement in divine affairs, content to observe from the spaces between realms. But these recent events, the soul harvesting, Thanatos' corruption, Persephone's ascension to the death god office, had drawn him back into active participation in a way he hadn't anticipated. More surprisingly, he found he didn't entirely mind it. Let's say I'm considering a consulting position, he replied finally. Part-time troubleshooter for cosmic emergencies. No regular hours, no throne on Olympus, definitely no temples or sacrifices. Reasonable terms, Hera acknowledged with the ghost of a smile. I would welcome your continued guidance, Persephone added sincerely. The death god office has more complexities than I initially understood. You're doing fine, Naruto assured her. Better than fine. Today proved that. She accepted the compliment with quiet dignity, though her pleased expression revealed how much his approval meant to her. We should return, Hades suggested, the crystal containing Cronus secure in his grasp. There is much to rebuild. Naruto nodded, focusing on the slowly stabilizing reality around them. With careful precision, he tore open 3 pathways, one to Olympus, one to the underworld, and one to the space between realms where he typically resided. Ladies and Lord first, he said with a mock bow, gesturing toward the portals. Hades inclined his head in farewell before stepping through the pathway to his domain, the crystal containing his father clutched firmly in one hand. Hera paused before her designated portal to Olympus. Zeus will expect a full report, she said, though her tone suggested this was not her primary concern. Tell him we kicked Primordial butt and saved reality, Naruto suggested cheerfully. He loves simple narratives where good triumphs over evil. Leave out the complicated parts about cosmic structural integrity and soul energy dynamics. A diplomatic approach, she noted with dry amusement. Perhaps you've gained political wisdom in your eons of existence after all. Don't tell anyone, Naruto stage whispered. I have a reputation to maintain. Hera's laugh was surprisingly warm, a sound few gods ever heard from the typically reserved queen of Olympus. Your secret is safe with me. With a final meaningful look that suggested their conversations were far from over, she stepped through her portal to Olympus. That left Persephone, still standing beside Naruto as reality continued its slow restoration around them. You're not really going back to isolation, are you? She asked, seeing the third portal leading to his solitary domain. Naruto shrugged. Old habits. I've spent more time alone than with company over the eons. But you don't have to, she pointed out. The Pantheon would welcome your presence, officially or otherwise. Most of the Pantheon thinks I'm terrifying when they bother to think of me at all, he countered, though without bitterness. I don't find you terrifying, Persephone said simply. That's because you're special, Flower Queen. His tone was light but sincere. You see both sides, life and death, beginning and ending. Most gods get stuck in their singular domains, their narrow perspectives. She considered this. Is that why you withdrew? Because no one understood your perspective? The question struck closer to truth than Naruto expected, making him pause. Partly, he admitted. Eternity gets lonely when no one sees the world quite like you do. I see it, she said quietly. Not exactly the same way, perhaps, but I understand the balance you created. The necessity of transition, of change. Something shifted in Naruto's ancient eyes, a recognition, perhaps, or a re-evaluation. Yeah, he said softly. I think you do. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching as another fragment of reality reintegrated with the cosmic whole. Death energy flowed more normally now, reinforcing the boundaries between realms rather than being harvested to break them down. So, Persephone finally said, about those ambrosia drinks. Naruto's face split into a genuine grin. Now you're talking. Underworld or Olympus? Neither, she decided. Show me your domain, this space between realms you call home. I'm curious about where the architect of death chooses to reside. Her request surprised him, but not unpleasantly. It's nothing fancy, he warned. No gold thrones, no eternal spring gardens. Good, she replied with unexpected firmness. I've had quite enough of both recently. Naruto laughed, appreciating her candor. With a gesture, he adjusted the third portal, expanding it to accommodate both of them comfortably. After you, Death God, he offered with theatrical courtesy. After you, Death Architect, she countered. It's your home, after all. Side by side, they stepped through the portal into the space between realms, not returning to predetermined roles or separate domains, but moving forward into something new and undefined. As the portal closed behind them, the last fragments of broken reality finally reintegrated, the cosmos once again whole. Not unchanged, nothing ever remained truly static, especially after such profound disruption. But whole again, and perhaps a little wiser for having bent without breaking. Much like the immortals who safeguarded it. In the quiet darkness between stars, a primordial stirred, watching the restoration with ancient patience. Defeat was temporary, existence was long. The chess pieces had rearranged themselves interestingly on the cosmic board. Erebus would wait. The game, after all, was far from over. But that was a concern for another day, another age. For now, balance had been restored, death flowed in its proper channels, and the cosmos continued its eternal dance of order and chaos, creation and destruction, beginnings and endings that were never truly final. Just as Naruto had designed it, all those eons ago. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.